Good evening. City Council is now in session. Please stand for the invocation by Councilman Goldberg, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Almighty Spirit, let all of us be thankful for the season upon us. Let us be mindful of the ones who do not have, and let us be generous in our giving. Bless everyone here and listening with your favor and love. Give us all good health, peace, and happiness. Continue to pray for the people of the Ukraine as President Zelensky is with us tonight speaking to Congress. Ukraine is in their efforts for freedom and for liberty. We give thanks for the release of Brittany Reiner and continue to pray for the release of other Americans being held. Bless our country for being the stronghold for democracy, and may it always be the leader of the world for all societies to have freedom of choice as we continue to make that happen in our country. May we all enjoy this holiday season of Hanukkah and Christmas and remember the reason for its being. Bless our community as we make decisions that help our city. We ask for all of this in your holy name, and we all say, Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Freedom of Information Act certification is required at this time. Madam Clerk, please present the resolution for consideration.
Mayor Duman, that is not required this evening as we did not have a closed meeting.
You're exactly right. Moving right along. Approval of the minutes. That wasn't funny. Approval of the minutes from the June 15, 2022 work session and regular meeting is the next item for consideration. A motion would be in order. Councilman Fawcett.
Move to approve, Mayor.
Got a motion for approval. Councilman Fawcett. Councilman Williams.
Second it.
Second from Councilman Williams. Is there any discussion of the motion? Hearing none, council members prepare to vote. Please cast your vote. Madam Clerk, please record the vote.
The motion is approved by a vote of 8-0.
We have no special presentations this evening. At this time, we will consider the removal of items from the consent agenda and adoption of the entire agenda as presented. Removal of any item from the consent agenda would only be necessary if any member of City Council wishes to vote on a specific item separately, and a motion would be required. Additionally, City Manager Moore has information regarding public hearing item number 14 and item number 24. Mr. City Manager, please provide council with an overview.
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. At your seat, you should have a letter from McGowan Group. They're the developer for item number 14 on your agenda. Staff is in receipt of a written request dated 12/16/2022 from the applicant requesting for item 14, CUP 2022-022, to have this item removed from your agenda this evening and have it postponed until your January 18th, 2023 meeting. The following are the specifics on this item. It's an ordinance to grant a conditional use permit to establish the use of parking, commercial, not owned or operated by a public agency on property located at 130 Maya Way, zoning map 20*22J, parcel 3, count number 306004631, and again, CUP 2022-22. In addition, due to schedule conflicts, it is requested to have item 24 removed from tonight's agenda, which is a motion to schedule a joint meeting of City Council and the School Board for Wednesday, January 25th, 2023 at 3 p.m. unless council. We will bring this back, a new motion at your next meeting once we establish a new date. At this time, I would ask City Council consideration of a motion to amend the December 21st, 2022 City Council agenda to remove public hearing listed as item 14 from this evening's agenda and remove item number 24 and adopt the remainder of the agenda as presented and scheduled. Item 14 and schedule item 14 as part of the January 18, 2023 City Council meeting agenda.
Okay, just for clarity, anyone who is in attendance tonight regarding public hearing item number 14, please note that the city manager has advised that the applicant has requested to continue consideration of the project to the January 18th, 2023 City Council meeting. If it's the council's desire, a motion would be in order to amend the agenda to continue consideration of public hearing item number 14 to the January 18, 2023 City Council meeting, the removal of item number 24 from the agenda for consideration, and to adopt the remainder of the agenda as presented, and that would be appropriate at this time. Councilman Fawcett.
I'll move to approve that, Mayor.
Motion for approval, Councilman Fawcett. Councilman Johnson.
Second.
Second from Councilman Johnson. Is there any further discussion of the motion? Hearing none, council members prepare to vote. Please cast your vote. Madam Clerk, please record the vote.
Motion is approved by a vote of 8-0.
I will now move to agenda speakers. Madam Clerk, are there any agenda speakers at this time? If so, please explain the time and system.
No, Mayor Duman, there are no individuals registered to speak under this portion of the agenda.
Okay, would you please present the items for consideration?
Consent agenda item number 7, an ordinance to accept and appropriate funds from the United States Tennis Association Mid-Atlantic Section Incorporated from the Suffolk Department of Parks and Recreation. Consent agenda item number 8, an ordinance to accept and appropriate funds from the Commonwealth of Virginia Compensation Board for reimbursement of legal fees for the City of Suffolk Clerk of the Circuit Court. Consent agenda item number 9, an ordinance to accept and appropriate funds from the Obice Health Care Foundation for the Suffolk Public Library Early Childhood Providers Classroom Assessment Scoring System Training and Curriculum Support Project. Item number 10, an ordinance to accept and appropriate Home Investment Partnerships Program American Rescue Plan funding from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. Item number 11, an ordinance to accept and appropriate funds from the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Improvement Program for the Shoulders Hill Road Multi-Use Path Project. Consent agenda item number 12, an ordinance to accept and appropriate funds from the Virginia Department of Aviation in support of environmental coordination for a T-hangar project at the Suffolk Executive Airport. And consent agenda item number 13, an ordinance authorizing the execution of a development and funding agreement for the Enterprise Drive and Holland Road intersection.
Mr. Manager, please provide an overview of the items.
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, in regards to item 7, the city is in receipt of $5,000 from the United States Tennis Association Mid-Atlantic Section, Inc. Funds will be used to refurbish tennis courts at the Howard Mask Tennis Complex located at Lake Mead Park. Adoption of this ordinance will increase the revenues and expenditures of the Consolidated Grants Fund budget by $5,000. A local match is required in the amount of $5,000, which is available in the Department of Parks and Recreation Maintenance Fund. In regards to item 8, the city is in receipt of $15,075.50 from the Commonwealth of Virginia Compensation Board for the reimbursement of legal fees for the city Suffolk Circuit Court Clerk. Adoption of the ordinance will increase the revenues and expenditures of the general fund budget by $15,075.50. No local match is required. In regards to item 9, the city is in receipt of $22,659 from the Obice Health Care Foundation in support of the Suffolk Public Library. Adoption of the ordinance will increase the revenues and expenditures of the Consolidated Grants Fund budget by the $22,659, and no local match is required. In regards to item 10, the city is in receipt of an award in the amount of $451,291 from United States Department of Housing and Urban Development for the Western Tidewater Home Consortium, which includes the city of Franklin and Suffolk and the counties of Isle of Wight and Southampton. Suffolk is the lead agency of the consortium. The award will be used for the planning, development, and administration of homeless programs. Adoption of the ordinance will increase the revenues and expenditures of the general fund budget by $1,451,291, and there is no local match. In regards to item 11, the city has received of $378,000 from the Virginia Department of Transportation Congestion and Air Quality Improvement Programs. Funds will be used for the Shoulders Hill Road multi-use path, along with previously received funds of $272,000. Adoption of the ordinance will increase the capital projects fund budget by $378,000. No local match is required. Item 12, the city has received of $16,000 from the Virginia Department of Aviation for environmental coordination for a T-hangar. Adoption of the ordinance will increase the revenues and expenditures of the capital projects fund budget by $16,000. There is a local match of $4,000, which is required and is provided within the FY 22-23 Aviation Fund budget. In regards to item 13, this is an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute a development and funding agreement with SC, or Southeastern Virginia Suffolk Property Owner, Inc. The purpose of the agreement is to coordinate the improvements at the intersection of Enterprise Drive and Holland Road with the Route 58 widening project. The Southeast Virginia Suffolk Property Owners, Inc. is the developer responsible for the intersection improvements. The agreement will allow the developer to financially contribute and dedicate the intersection signal equipment to the city to install, and it allows us to better coordinate the construction of the improvements in that area.
If there are no questions about the items, a motion would be in order to approve the consent agenda as presented. Councilman Goldberg.
Move for approval, Mayor.
A motion for approval, Councilman Goldberg. Councilman Ward.
Second.
Second from Councilman Waters. Is there any further discussion of the motion? Hearing none, council members prepare to vote. Please cast your vote. Madam Clerk, please record the vote.
The motion is approved by a vote of 8-0.
Okay, we're now going to move to public hearings. Our first one is item number 14, which has been continued to January 18th City Council meeting at the request of the applicant. Number 15 is an ordinance to rezone and amend the official zoning map of the city of Suffolk from B2, General Commercial Zoning District, to RU, Residential Urban Zoning District Conditional, for property located at 5551 and 5635 Shoulders Hill Road, zoning map 12, parcels 55*1D*2 and 55*1J. Account numbers 3042317000 and 3044064000. This is RZN 2022 non-conditional. Mr. Manager, please provide an overview.
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, Interim Director of Planning and Community Development, Kevin Wine, will provide the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Manager, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. This is a rezoning request to rezone 22.8 acres of property from the B2 General Commercial Zoning District to RU, Residential Urban Conditional Zoning District, for the purpose of developing a combination of townhomes and fourplex age-restricted units along Shoulders Hill Road. The subject property is located at 5635 and 5551 Shoulders Hill Road, which is approximately a quarter of a mile south of Bridge Road and Shoulders Hill Road's intersection. It is also south of the Bennett's Creek Shopping Center. The comprehensive plan designates this property as part of the Northern Growth Area Inner Ring Suburban Use District. Both parcels are currently zoned B2, general commercial. That is, in addition, the parcel to the south is also subject to the Special Corridor Overlay District, which is our SCOD, being that Shoulders Hill Road is a principal arterial roadway. Here you can see the rezoning exhibit submitted with the project. That area in yellow is the one that will be subject to the rezoning request here. All of that is currently zoned B2. You have a parcel without direct road frontage on Shoulders Hill to the north. If you were to flip this map counterclockwise, it's on your right-hand side and looking at the map. On your left-hand side, you have that pale yellow, which represents the portion of that parcel to be rezoned from B2 to RU conditional, with reservation of B2 zoning at the front of this in that orange color. That represents 4.2 acres of property. We do have a conceptual layout as provided by the applicant. It is not proffered. However, it usually offers a good example of what they're proposing for the site. So you have a combination of townhomes and fourplexes on the northern and the southern parcel. You have townhomes envisioned along the rear of the southern parcel. And then on the northern parcel, you have a combination of fourplexes and townhomes. In total, the developer envisioned 63 townhome units and 48 fourplex units envisioned for the site. A maximum of 111 age-restricted condominium units has been voluntarily proffered by the applicant. This would result in a gross density of roughly 5 units per acre. The 4.2 acres that is proposed to remain B2 is envisioned to potentially support a few commercial uses ranging from about 6,000 to 11,000 square feet in size, as an example provided by the applicant. The applicant's narrative describes in detail many reasons for pursuing this rezoning request. First, they believe that the RU district would create a better transition between the existing Bennett's Creek Quarter neighborhood under construction and the 4.2 acre area reserved for commercial uses directly along Shoulders Hill Road. Additionally, the retirement age targeted community would be within 1.2 miles of Centerra Bell Harbor Hospital. And during the initial review of the application, staff did express some concerns that the area to be retained for B2 along Shoulders Hill Road may be a little too small to accommodate any viable commercial uses. Typically, the depth required would be roughly 300 feet is appropriate, whereas the rezoning exhibit depicts about 220 feet of the commercial zone area. While the applicant modified their rezoning request to retain 4.2 acres of B2 rather than the 3.8 originally, the proposed area reserved for commercial uses is limited, and that is a concern. Additionally, there's concern regarding the influx of residential development, particularly in the age-restricted segment, particularly in the north area of Suffolk. Over the past few years, we've certainly seen an influx of that development type, and the applicant provided a market analysis to demonstrate the demand for the housing in northern Suffolk and the amount of vacant commercial spaces available for lease, which they estimated at about 370,000 square feet. The applicant does contend that the RU district would allow the property to provide additional rooftops to support Route 17 and Shoulders Hill Road, and that the applicant also believes the voluntarily proffered road improvements would be beneficial to the city, and they would not necessarily occur from a by right development of the property. The property is within our inner ring suburban use district, which recommends densities between 6 and 12 units per acre. Neighborhood level retail use nodes are recommended within walking distance of the intended markets. Sub-regional scale centers, such as grocery stores, big box stores, et cetera, can be accommodated at specific locations within this district. The developer, this is a conditional rezoning as such. The developer has voluntarily proffered a variety of things here, 5 proffers total. The first pertaining to building materials, limiting or which will assist in the aesthetics and the quality of this development using cultured stone, brick, and masonry veneer. Fiber cement would be the exterior construction materials used. Vinyl may be used only as an accent, and all roofing materials would be architectural shingles. Additionally, they did provide a proffer which designates these as age-restricted units. They would all be reserved for owners 55 years and older, according to HUD standards, which has typically been a proffer the city can accept. They also refer to the transportation improvements as identified in the submitted traffic impact analysis that was prepared by McPherson Consulting and dated this past September. They do proffer the overall units, limiting themselves to 111 condominium units total, And lastly, they proffer traffic signalization being installed with the construction of Meadowview Boulevard. Specifically, the signal would be built prior to the certificate of occupancy for the fifth dwelling unit that is built between the southern parcel and Laycock Lane and Meadowview Boulevard. So that would be, going back to this exhibit, the area of townhomes only. Once they get to the fifth certificate of occupancy, that would require the construction of Meadowview Boulevard here, which would trigger the installation of a traffic signal at that site. So in summary, the existing B2 General Commercial Zoning District present at 5635 and 5551 Shoulders Hill Road is considered appropriate and correct as the site fronts on a principal RTO roadway, and even more importantly, it's located in close proximity to one of the most prominent intersections in the city of Suffolk, being Shoulders Hill Road at Bridge Road. The existing B2 zone would continue from Bridge Road south for roughly 3/4 of a mile, as it currently does, in order to allow the opportunity for commercial revenue generating and job producing land uses to balance out the abundant number of residential neighborhoods located to the east, west, and south of the subject parcel. The existing zoning complies with many of the goals of the 2035 Comprehensive Plan and the locational criteria for the B2 zone identified in the Unified Development Ordinance. Therefore, staff is recommending denial of the rezoning request RZN 2022-009 conditional and the submitted proffer statement. Finally, the Planning Commission did consider this item at their meeting last month on November 15th, and by a vote of 5-2, they voted to approve a resolution recommending approval of this application. That concludes my presentation. I will be happy to address any concerns or questions at the conclusion of the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Wine. Before we open the public hearing, Madam Clerk, please explain the timing system.
This is a public hearing, and each speaker is asked to provide their name and their address. We will have a 10-minute period for the proponents, a 15-minute period for those in opposition, and then an additional 5 minutes for rebuttal.
This is a public hearing. Will the first speaker please come forward and provide their name and address, and that is to speak in favor of this ordinance.
Good evening, Council. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa. I wanted to thank staff, Melissa Venable, Land Planning Solutions, 5857 Harborview Boulevard in Suffolk. I want to thank staff first for working with me on this application. Throughout the process, we worked together. We increased the area of commercial from our original application and demonstrated how office and retail could easily be accommodated on the site. Although we didn't come to meeting of the minds, I think we got to the best possible outcome we could come up with. And as always, staff has been always accommodating and wonderful to work with, so I appreciate it, Kevin. Thank you very much. I agree with the comprehensive plan generally. Commercial space along major corridors should be preserved. I also believe that Shoulders Hill Road, as it has developed throughout the years, has a great deal of residential development from east to west. Therefore, hindering this road with more intense commercial development along Shoulders Hill corridor, I don't believe is welcomed. If you live near this area, you've noted significant growth on Route 17 within the Bennett's Creek Shopping Center, Harborview Boulevard, and the newer developments that you see on Civic 17, there are significant vacancies. Also, I believe Suffolk is proving that trends for commercial growth are surely changing. This past fall, Suffolk announced 3.8 million square foot of the Amazon Fulfillment Center opening. Is it logical to think that we can establish centers like this and a great deal of commercial and that both can survive? The Fulfillment Center, as you know, and as we've all throughout the holidays have had multiple things shipped to us. So I know, for instance, for me, running to the store has been limited, and having lots of brown boxes delivered to my house is what's been happening more and more, and I'm thankful for the Fulfillment Center. With that said, I just fear that with more and more commercial growth, especially in a place like on Shoulders Hill, we're going to see more and more vacancies as that continues. Bennett's Creek Square is directly across the street from this property, as you know, It has a beautiful walking trail, landscaping, and buffering. And I believe that this application will mimic that right across the street. So we'll have a large buffer Scott area and a multi-purpose trail that is recommended. That will connect Creekside Elementary School, the existing neighborhoods that are in place, to the Bennett's Creek Shopping Center for walking, biking, and an internal roadway that we show on our plans. I would also note with the small amount of neighborhood retail, the 4.2 acres, and the clubhouse and pool that we envision along Shoulders Hill Road, this is exactly what would work at this location without being too disturbing to the established neighborhoods along Shoulders Hill Road. In the staff report, several city policies are listed, and I believe we are meeting their intent. We're keeping development focused in designated growth areas. We assure that development occurs in a predictable and orderly manner and promotes compatibility. We promote a balance of residential and non-residential, and as the market study that we provided states, active adult housing is still needed, and this doesn't burden our school systems, but instead provides housing that is in demand here in Suffolk. We are promoting opportunities for residential to adopt a lifestyle that is less dependent on car. As I noted, we are going to have the multi-use trail, and we are within walking distance of Bennett's Creek's Bennett's Creek Shopping Center. We think people will walk, bike, and use, like I said, that access trail to get there. The last policy that wasn't noted, Action 6-1J, allow opportunities for retirement housing. The Shoulders Hill improvements that are proffered, as Kevin noted, but I would like to restate, with this project are great assets for the Shoulders Hill Road connector. The Shoulders Hill 4-lane road section will be implementing, we'll be putting in the turn lanes and the growth of Shoulders Hill Road. The current project that the city's now working on and construction has begun stops at Lake Hawk Lane, and we will continue that construction along Lake Hawk Lane to Meadowview Boulevard. I always want to change the name of that, I apologize. We'll be completing that construction prior to the first CO of this project. And then we will be installing, as Kevin noted, Meadowview Boulevard and the lighted intersection before it's actually demanded or required before the southern part of this development is complete, less four units that we would have for model homes. I hope you find that what we're proposing is appropriate, and I will stand by for additional questions. Thanks so much.
I think we have our next speaker to speak in favor of this ordinance.
Good evening and Merry Christmas to all. My name is Brian Rowe, and I reside at 803 Cypress Chapel Road in the beautiful city of Suffolk. And just wanted to speak just briefly tonight to, and of course I'm available for any questions for anyone for any clarification points. We're excited about the retreat at Creekside. This is a wonderful location for another one of our high-end active adult communities. It's sitting in a perfect location for the active adult to prosper and live very close to healthcare and medical and shopping. It's walkable, bikeable. It's just an ideal infill location. I'm not going to repeat a lot of the things that were said about the commercial use that we're rezoning from. I think that's already been spoken to. We feel like this residential use here will be just welcomed by the active adult community. I would like to speak a little more about some of the amenities that we put in. Some of you may or may not be familiar with our communities. I believe most of you are. But we have the retreat at Bennett's Creek. We're just wrapping that one up now right off of Lee Farm Lane. Every one of our active adult communities, we invest over $1 million in the clubhouse and the pool, the walking trails, fire pits, to create an active adult lifestyle that will attract the 55 and better purchaser to age in place in this community. And that's the best thing for the city of Suffolk. It's the best thing for this type of neighborhood, to keep our residents here, to have them age in place, to go to the same houses of worship, to go to the same shopping areas, to still keep their friends. The active adult is a great, it's just a great demographic to retain within your city. We spent a lot of time also talking to Bennett Street Square across the street. about our neighborhood. Had a meeting there, and I've had a number of individual meetings with different residents there. As Melissa mentioned, they're not a big advocate of any commercial at all. Even they really don't even want the commercial on the front. But in talking with Kevin, and we appreciate the time you spent with us, Kevin, as well, we decided to leave the 4.4 plus acres up front as B2 commercial, and see if that, how that does over time and it develops. But nevertheless, Bennett Street Square likes what we're doing. That we'll be good neighbors for them as well. And just to clear up any confusion on the sequence of how we're going to develop this site, because there's been a few questions from different council members and planning commissioners during this process about how we plan to move the site forward. Unlike some developers, we're not a phased development where certain developers could or would decide to develop the northern tract first, do the southern tract later. As you can see by our layout, our clubhouse and our model home park is right on the southern tract, adjacent to the commercial tract, up close to Shoulders Hill Road. So we have the large amenity facility right there as you come in. Is a great welcome to our potential buyers and residents with the amenity up front. And what we will do is we will do both tracks simultaneously for site work. And although we proffered certain sequence of when we have to build Meadowview Boulevard or install the traffic signal, we know that we could not build Meadowview Boulevard without going right to the traffic signal and open it, because it'd be a dangerous road if it didn't have a signal there. So our plan is to develop the entire site, do the improvements along Shoulders Hill Road. While that's going on, we'll start creating building pads within the community for our product and our clubhouse. We build our clubhouse and pool before we build anything else in the community. We don't build the amenity coming soon. We build the amenity immediately. That way, the residents see it and believe it, and they know what they're going to get when they live there. And we will get right to Meadowview Boulevard, and we'll start building that road. We'll barricade it. And once it's done, and we'll go right to constructing the signal about the time we probably open the property for the first resident to move in. So that's our intent, and I wanted to make sure we were clear on that. And I appreciate your time tonight, and look forward to any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our time for the proponents. We'll now move to 15 minutes allocated for opponents. Do we have anyone to speak in opposition to this ordinance at this time?
Good evening and happy holidays to all. My name is Evelyn Jones. I live at 4921 Fennell Lane. That's Fennell Lane. I don't live next door to this, but I do come pretty close to it. In fact, today I drove down that part of Shoulders Hill Road to get home from a chore that I ran at the shopping center. I want you to know Shoulders Hill Road is an abomination. When I left there, it took me 15 minutes to drive 1 mile. And then I had to wait for 2 traffic lights. So it is not a good place to build multifamily units. It has too many already. We don't need any more multifamily out there. If you're going to build residential, then let's have nice subdivisions with standalone single-family homes. Multifamily is, if you're on Shoulders Hill Road and you drive from Pughesville back towards Bridge, everything, with one exception, on the right-hand side is nothing but multifamily. We don't need any more. So I am definitely opposed to multifamily development along Shoulders Hill Road. And I believe before any more development is made, Shoulders Hill Road needs to be widened to 4-lane divided. It does not need to sit like it is right now. It is a horrible, horrible trip. You need to come out there. I was on it this afternoon at 2:45, and traffic was backed up from where I get off at Bob White Lane to Bridge Road. It was backed up that early in the afternoon. So it doesn't need multifamily. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We have our next speaker to speak in opposition.
Christopher Dove, 852 Colonel Lee Drive, Suffolk, Virginia. Happy holidays to all faiths and denominations. I see this as an age-restricted facility, but nowadays age restriction does not mean that there are not going to be children in this development. Grandparents are now taking care of their grandchildren and sending them to school in our city. Parents are having children move back in with their own children. So although this subdivision will probably have far less than normal for a similar size subdivision, the assumption that schools will not be impacted is an invalid assumption. UDO Section 31601, adequate public facilities, states the purpose and intent of this section is to ensure public facilities needed to support new development meet or exceed the level of services established by the comprehensive plan in this section. 3, to ensure no rezoning, site plans, or subdivision plats are approved, which would cause a reduction in the level of service for any public facilities below the level of service established by the comprehensive plan in this section. And 4, to ensure that the adequate public facilities needed to support new development are available concurrent with the impact of that development. 5635 Shoulders Hill Road is in the Creekside Elementary School District and the Nasman River High School District. Both schools do not meet or exceed the level of service standards established by the comprehensive plan and Section 31601. Availability or approval of this rezoning will cause a reduction of the level of service of any public facilities further below the adequate levels of service established by the comprehensive plan and Section 3106 because of that before mentioned children returning to their grandparents. And no public facilities, no public facilities needed to support the new development will be available concurrent with the impacts of the development. This council has not authorized a new school to replace a school or augment the school. So these schools, both the elementary school and the high school, are over capacity and cannot support any new students. So in accordance with UDO Section 31310, approval of this rezoning is unlawful. Thank you.
We have our next speaker to speak in opposition. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to this ordinance? Hearing none, we have a 5-minute rebuttal period. Ms. Venable or Mr. Rowe?
Hello again, and I just want to speak a minute to Mr. Duff. Good to see you again, sir. Speak to the age restriction and the way we enforce school-age children. We are regulated by the federal government with the 55 and older regulation, which will prohibit any owner of the unit being one of the two owners has to be 55 or older. That's mandatory. But we further enforce and within our condominium documents in all of our retreat communities, it's paramount to an active adult community where you have people that are aging in place that we do not allow school-age kids to reside within the community for any more than 3 months. So yes, the grandparent could have a school-age child visit for the summer, but our condominium documents are very clear. They're developed and approved by the Virginia Condominium Act, and we do prohibit any school-age children living there for any more than 3 months out of the year. So there will be no impact to any school system. There'll be no school-age children allowed to reside in the community. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got another 4 minutes left in the rebuttal period. If anyone else would like to speak in rebuttal. Hearing no additional speakers, this public hearing is now closed. An ordinance has been presented for council's consideration. Question, comments, or a motion? Questions, comments, or a motion? Councilperson Butler Barlow.
I have a question. You mentioned that there would be, Brian and Melissa, you mentioned that there would be access, walking, biking access to the shopping centers up on 17. And can you tell me where that is? I'd just like to, I can't see it on the,
Well,
is it, I mean, is it along Shoulders Hill Road, or is there like a back way, or?
well, there's a way that we'll be putting sidewalks and installing all of our frontage along Shoulders Hill. There'll be sidewalks installed there. So you'll be able to access it from that point. And then you'll also be able to, you really can't see it very well on the plan, but there'll be a way to kind of sneak out of the northern tract and get down over to, onto Shoulders Hill Road at that point as well. And I'm not sure, I can't speak to what the city is doing within their CIP up to Laycock Lane, but I'm not sure whether there are sidewalks being installed on either side of that is not, as well they are? Okay. So yeah, so the city is actually installing sidewalks, so we will be able to have sidewalk access out of our community at the main entrance over to the shopping district.
And I think bike paths also? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Goldberg.
Mayor, with listening to everything and reading what we have, I'm going to make a motion for approval.
We have a motion for approval from Councilman Goldberg, Vice Mayor Bennett.
I'll second.
We have a second of Councilman Goldberg's motion for approval. Councilman Johnson.
Just a comment. I'm not always in favor of development and developers and this, that, and the other. But when I think it's right, I think it's right. I think this is the time when this developer has approached this thing from the right aspect. And commercial development today, honestly, is not working that well. And where on Shoulders Hill Road, I'm not so sure we need too much more commercial development. And once the roads are improved, I think it's going to alleviate a lot of the concerns when we complete Shoulders Hill Road. So for that reason, I tend to support this development. I think that they're going in the right direction. It's a good developer. He presents a good community. And for that reason, I'm going to support it. Thank you.
Councilman Fawcett.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. I did attend the community meeting at the Bennett Creek Square, and I think a couple of the things that were the cliffhanger for those folks there were, one, they didn't want any commercial whatsoever across the roadway because of the proximity to the development. They felt that it wouldn't be advantageous to have that there. So they really objected to any type of development over there, business-wise. I think that, without question, Shoulders Hill Road is a disaster right now. There's no question about it. I mean, I happen to live there, so I kind of know when I can get out and when I can't get out, and it's very difficult. And I don't know that we're going to alleviate a whole lot of the problems on Shoulders Hill until such time as the CIP kind of bubbles up a little bit, or we get some dollars from the feds or state to extend that roadway on out from where Meadowbrook is at now, which is probably going to have a name change, down to at least Pughesville or beyond. I mean, I'm not going to see it in my time, and most of you up here are probably not going to see it any time in the near future, where that road is going to get corrected to a four-lane road. It's probably just not going to happen. Not now, anyway. Maybe 10 years from now, you might see it, if you're lucky. So meanwhile, we're going to fight the traffic out there. It does make it difficult. We have 400 and some odd units being built behind him that he's requesting, 111. You got Bob White that's putting about 400 homes out there. So between Shoulders Hill Road, Pughesville Road, we're just getting inundated and crushed. And then you add the trucks on it that we can't seem to get a handle on, that are still coming down there daily. We're still waiting for signage up there for no-through trucks. So it takes us a little time to get up off the ground in this city for some reason, for some things, which is not pleasing. It didn't take us long to get signs up, and we got complaints of trucks over there in Suffolk Meadows, but it seems to be a problem after we passed this resolution or this ordinance to no trucks down Shoulders Hill Road to Pughesville. We still haven't got a sign up, and I'm still getting pounded with traffic. And I think the lady from Bob White that came up probably spoke the best of it, because she's right. The traffic is miserable, and you cannot get out. It's just simple as that. Now, the upside of this is, I don't think it's a bad development. I know Mr. Rowe does a pretty good project wherever he goes. He does put a lot of good emphasis on making sure that it kind of funnels in with the surrounding community. And he has proffered to put a traffic light up to alleviate the citizens that are going to be coming out of the back of his community, which is John DiPolitano's development, that's going to use that Meadowbrook Boulevard, which is going to be Richard Bennett Parkway. So that is paramount that light get there to get those people out of that road, or you're going to have nothing but Crash City at that location, because there's just no way the traffic's going to be able to cross over one another. So there's a couple of good things. I mean, the road improvement he's going to make is maybe not a long distance, but it's something to get the traffic further down. You've got a major road improvement going on at Shoulders Hill and Bridge Road that this will kind of feed into to help move that traffic along. So I think in the long run, we'll see a little bit of alleviation, but it's not going to be enough, because you're going to take all that traffic and dump it down on a one lane either way you go. It's not going to change anything. So I had a lot of nights that I thought about this project. I beat this project up. Is it the right time for the project? Well, that's anybody's guess, if it's the right time or not. We have an influx of 55 and older coming in here in this city through builders that want to do 55 and older. I kind of take a little bit of view to that, because I think that changes the look of the communities, and it circumvents, in my opinion, the school proffers, which I have a problem with. So, and I have right now, just in my area alone, up on the north end, along with my colleague, Mr. Ward, we have right now, that I can think of, almost 4 or 5 55 and older units in the pipeline. And so we're getting pretty much inundated up there with the 55 and older community. So I'm going to be taking a hard look at 55 and older as it comes forward in the future, and I'm very likely to take a hard stance on it if it comes up, because it's just getting a little bit too much. So I just wanted to make those comments right now. I appreciate Mr. Rowe and his staff and our staff working together. I think in the long run, this will shake out. This is about a 5-year, 6-year project. This isn't going to happen overnight. There's going to be improvements along the way, but his project's just not going to bounce out of the ground. And you're going to open your curtain or drive down the street and see 111 units up in the air. It's just not going to happen. I do think there's enough infrastructure in place in this location to put a 55 and older unit in. I don't agree with the fact that there's going to be school-aged children living there, because that's not the purpose of it. And that can be easily handled by the association if that does occur. So that'll be looked at. So I'm not too concerned about, we can't stop young children coming to be with their grandparents, but it can be stopped about the time and length they're going to live there, or visit, if you want to call it. So I think that all in all, we'll see what the product looks like when it gets to really moving along, and what the road conditions is looking like and the improvements to the roadway. So I appreciate it, and that's all I have tonight.
Council, any other questions or comments? I'll just make one comment. Looking at, well, number one, I think this is going to be an exceptional product. I'm very familiar with it. Is the 55 and above does relieve the stress on the schools, and also changes the traffic patterns. When you look at it, there's 483 peak AM trips and 395 peak PM trips. So while no one really welcomes additional traffic, it will still be substantially less than if this parcel is developed as strictly B2, which is traffic all the time. As long as those businesses are open, there's traffic coming and going. So, as I mentioned before, nobody's looking for more traffic, but it is definitely less objectionable than the remaining B2 piece. So with that, I'll also lend my support to it. Right now, we do have a motion for approval from Councilman Goldberg and a second by Vice Mayor Bennett. And hearing no other discussion, council members prepare to vote. Please cast your vote. Madam Clerk, please record the vote.
The motion is approved by a vote of 8-0.
Our next public hearing is an ordinance to amend Chapter 31 of the Unified Development Ordinance of the Code of the City of Suffolk, specifically Article 5, Subdivision, Section 31-506, B2, Minor Subdivision, Appendix A, Definitions, and Appendix B, Submission Requirements, B9, Final Plats or Site Plans. This is OTA 2022-2, and this item was continued from the October 19th City Council meeting. Mr. Manager, please provide an overview of the item.
Members of council, Kevin Wine will provide the background on this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. In a lot of ways, calling this an ordinance text amendment is a misnomer. In a lot of ways, this is just a clarification of our existing regulations. This is an item that you all are familiar with. We've discussed with you previously, most recently on October 19th. And it really does three things. Defines parent track. It slightly reinforces some language related to parent tracks and how many cuts. The cuts related to it, and requires a title report prior to a submission of a subdivision plat. So with that being said, it's not really it's an ordinance text amendment because we're going to add some language. But it's a clarification of our existing regulations. Subdivision cuts are limited to the parent track. That's out of our ordinance now as it existed on or prior to March 1st, 1970. That's our date of applicability as it relates to our subdivision regulations. So one opportunity for clarification that we identified was define parent track so it's clear for everyone in Appendix B of the UDO. The existing language in the code we saw could benefit from some additional clarity to reinforce the intent of the minor subdivision review and approval process. As such, we added just a little sentence or two to Section 31-506 of the Unified Development Ordinance. And I touched on this at the top, but right now we don't require a full title report for minor subdivisions. We've accepted title opinions. It's really important to understand the subdivision history of a property when you're trying to determine whether they have cuts to yield on those properties or not. As such, a full-blown title report would be very helpful, not only to the development community who are getting these title reports done anyway, but for our staff in reviewing them to ensure that the cuts that they're wishing to yield on these properties are actually available to them. So once again, adoption of this amendment will not change the interpretation of the city's minor subdivision provisions. That's not the intent at all. Regardless of what happens this evening, the interpretation will remain the same. However, what this will do, it will reinforce the city's minor subdivision process to eliminate any future misinterpretation as it relates to the location of minor subdivision cuts, offering additional clarity to citizens, the development community, and our city staff alike. So the first part of this is defining a parent track. Right now, we mention it in our subdivision ordinance, but that doesn't come with the benefit of a definition. So this change would create a definition for it, and it would read a lot, parcel, or tract of land legally established prior to March 1st, 1970, of which a plat or legal description is recorded in the circuit court clerk's office. Very straightforward. That is what a parent track is in the city of Suffolk. So here is that additional sentence that I noted, which would offer additional clarity as it relates to subdivision cuts and how they're related to a parent track and where they must be located. So new lots created in accordance with subsection A above must be located within the physical boundaries of their associated parent track as it existed on March 1st, 1970. So now I'm going to roll through an illustration of what this looks like in practice, or what this is looking to correct from a misinterpretation standpoint. Subdivision of land can be quite complicated, and reading the code and enforcing it can be complicated. Folks are always trying to identify ways to develop their property if they wish to do that. So here we have a visual of two parent tracks. We have 1*1 on your right-hand side, on the left-hand side, 1*2. You can see one of those parcels does not have road frontage, the road being the gray area on your right-hand side there. So these are two distinct parcels. For the sake of this discussion, let's assume they were both created on March 1st, 1970 or prior to that. So these are parent tracks. 1*1 has not been cut before. As such, it may be cut up to 3 times with the balance remaining a residue parcel. So they yielded 3 cuts that were available to them on the road, with the 1*1 parent track remaining the large piece that encompasses the rest of the land there. That would be the residue of that parent track. At that point, it has maximized its allowable cuts. However, what we have seen come through the office on occasion is this here. This is kind of the first part of it. But so here we have that parent track, 1*1, large, encompasses the rest of the parcels there. However, here you can see it's been shrunk. It's much smaller than it used to be. It's no bigger than the parcels that were yielded. And that boundary line that separated 1*2 from 1*1 has vanished. At this point, it's kind of absorbed it, and 1*2 has road frontage that it previously did not have. However, and that's with the desire of creating some additional cuts on that road frontage, yielding that road frontage that was not available to 1*2 in the first place. So that we've seen this come through the office at times, and these 3 kind of dash line gray parcels are not located on the original parent track as the ordinance intends it. So once again, the whole purpose of this ordinance text amendment is to clarify our existing regulations, the existing interpretation of the subdivision ordinance as it relates specifically to minor subdivisions. So I touched on this. This is the third part of this ordinance text amendment, and this establishes that for minor subdivision plats as outlined in 31506B2A of this ordinance, the applicant shall submit a title report prepared by a title examiner verifying ownership and subdivision history of the parcel being subdivided, including the parent track. This is common sense for staff and the development community alike. Folks who wish to go through the minor subdivision process oftentimes have this information anyway. So we're really not asking them to do any more than they're already doing. But this would solidify the subdivision history of it, of a tract, and we would really be able to look at the dates if and when new cuts have been provided by a certified professional. This is actually what we require for family transfer subdivisions. So this language was just borrowed from what we already require for a family transfer subdivision, which is approved by our Planning Commission. So to sum up this ordinance text amendment, the language will not impact how the subdivision process is interpreted. I've said that a couple times. It will not change how the UDO's regulations are applied. for minor subdivisions. It's an opportunity to clearly outline and reinforce our existing regulations, with the results being a clearer process for public and staff. A final point here, and this is out of the comprehensive plan, but preserving the agricultural heritage and character of the city is a key principle and value as identified in the 2035 comprehensive plan. And this clarification reinforces the limit of 3 subdivision cuts per parent tract through the minor subdivision process, and would go a long way in meeting that principle and value as outlined. Lastly, this does come and was heavily vetted through the Committee on Ordinances as well, which is a subcommittee of the Planning Commission. But at their meeting on September 20th, 2022, the Planning Commission voted 8-0 to approve a resolution recommending approval of this ordinance text amendment. That concludes my presentation on this item. I'll stand by for questions at the conclusion of the public hearing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wine. Before we open the public hearing, Madam Clerk, please explain the timing system.
This is a public hearing, and each speaker is asked to provide their name and their address, and will have 3 minutes to offer their remarks.
This is a public hearing. Will the first speaker please come forward and provide their name and address?
Christopher Dove, 852 Colonel Meade Drive, Suffolk, Virginia. As someone who actually reads the UDO, I can only support this amendment. Clarification and codification in plain language is something to be strived for all the times in public documents. And once again, I'd like to strongly support this change. Thank you.
We have our next speaker, please. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak to this ordinance? Both, either one, for or against. This is just to speak. Everybody, there's 3 minutes out allotted for either way you want to go.
Good evening, happy felicitations. My name is Jacqueline Brooks. I live at 1305 Manning Road. Sorry, apologize for ignorance, but you have to educate me. Why is 1 March 1970 used? And also I'd like to know if there's a specified size of the parent tract as well as size of each of the cuts. Thank you.
We have our next speaker, please.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, Mr. City Manager, members of council, very nice to see you tonight. Wish you happy holiday. My name is Jesse Johnson. My office address is 3508 Robbs Drive here in the city of Suffolk. I've been a practicing attorney in this city for going on 48 years. And I've dealt a lot with the ordinances prior to the initiation of the UDO, which happened, I think, in 1999. The rural community, and we have a number of residents, landowners, farmers here tonight, and I think you'll hear from most of them, that were quite concerned about the language that's being proposed. It's quite interesting when you look at the staff report, and we see that the change is necessary due to a change in circumstance. We have no idea what that is, so we can only speak really to what Mr. Wine has alluded to tonight. He wants to update and refine the code. Well, we got the UDO in 1999, I believe. Prior to that, we had had meetings for years and years to try to deal with what was going on in the rural communities and how you subdivided land and how you were able to preserve tillable property, tillable land. We came up with several suggestions in the early to mid-'80s, but nothing ever happened to those, and it's unfortunate. And when we started as a city, the people who own property in the rural areas could have 5 subdivision cuts plus a residue. Well, that got whittled down to 4 cuts and a residue. It now stands at 3 cuts and a residue. Now, the issue here is what Mr. Wine described. However, the issue is much broader than having a property that has inadequate road frontage or no road frontage at all, which you can do what's commonly known as a boundary line adjustment and add that property to other property and maybe get 1 or 2 cuts. That's what seems to be the burr in planning saddle here. Now, if the goal in doing this is to try to preserve tillable acreage, we can suggest a number of ways that can be done through ordinance changes offering incentives and disincentives to put us in a situation where we can preserve tillable acreage, and I think that's an important point. This language, while it may seem somewhat innocuous, I think can lead to some very unintended negative consequences because we think the language is that broad. It just is not going to apply to that one situation regarding the use of property. I mean, as it relates to boundary line adjustments. We think there's a much better way to do it. We have suggestions, but quite frankly, we've had no ability to have any input. And my standing up here for 3 minutes is certainly not enough time to give you that. So we would want you to consider those things in whatever you do tonight. We believe that things should be open for discussion in something that's this important, that has ramifications far and away past what's been described. So,
I'm sorry, sir, that concludes.
We got
your
3
time.
minutes?
Yeah, just,
Sometimes I just can't keep track of my mind.
I gave you some extra.
All right, thanks.
Here we have our next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Morris Glover. My occupation is farmer, landowner, and land manager. I have read the proposed text amendment for the Unified Development Ordinance with respect to Article 5, Subdivision Section 31-506B2, relative to minor subdivisions. I am here to state that I am strongly opposed to this change. My reasons for opposition are as follows. While I have deep roots in the agricultural community and farming is how I make my living, I'm also a property owner of several farms, and as such, I am a staunch property rights advocate. I feel that if I own a piece of property, I should be able to utilize that property to achieve the highest value, and sometimes that is not always farming that parcel. I am now in what most people would consider my retirement years and can foresee that day that I may not be able to continue to farm. Getting help with my farming operations is getting more difficult every year. And if my health prevents me in the future from being able to farm, I absolutely think I should be able to either subdivide my property within the context of the ordinance as it currently exists or market my properties with the best chance I have to receive the highest price for the potential for the properties as I can. If this text amendment is passed, I will not have any ability to work with other adjoining property owners to potentially put any of my properties and or theirs in a better position to receive the highest value for us both. I am specifically referring to the fact that we will not be able to have a legal boundary line adjustment plat done to grant either one of us aid in making our properties more subdividable to their maximum potential. The reason for this is because the wording of page 2, Exhibit B, General Procedure, Item 2B states that the new lots created in accordance with this ordinance must be located within the physical boundaries of the associated parent tract as it existed on March the 1st, 1970. This presumed definition of parent tract is over 50 years old. However, I have no problem per se as with how a parent tract is currently defined, because what is that is what minor subdivisions have been predicated on ever since the city has had a subdivision ordinance. But what I am opposed to is that if the boundaries of the so-called parent tract cannot be changed in order to make two adjoining parcels better shaped so as to enable each parcel to get the benefits of 3 lots and a residue, if no cuts have come out of them before, many of existing properties that I and others presently own will be significantly devalued. It is because of these concerns that in closing, I respectfully request the City Council to deny this text amendment change on behalf of all landowners and farmers that own land. I have been farming my entire life. Since 1956, I was in high school, and I always took whatever I could earn and bought in farmland. And over the years, I've only sold 9 lots. From 1956 to now, I bought my first farm in '60. So I'm not trying to develop the whole city, but I would like to be able to, if I need money or need help with, in my old age, to be able to get rid of what that I bought, knowing that this was the rules. And now, when I get 81 years old, you change the rules on me, and my land is going to be, the number of farms that I purchased would be, if this comes in effect, would be significantly devalued in not millions, but millions of dollars. And I don't think that's right. Thank you.
We have our next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. My name is Wayne Courtney. I'm the owner and president of Courtney & Associates PC, surveyors, mapping consultants, right-of-way acquisitions agents, and land planners, which has been located at 98 Kilby Shores Drive since 1992. I'm here tonight to request that the Unified Development Ordinance text amendment that has been put before the council be denied, or at a minimum tabled due to what I perceive as unintended consequences if it passed. I've studied what I consider to be the potential downfalls of passing the amendment and have determined that perhaps even some of the landowners who may be in favor of this and presently support it may not realize how their own properties may be devalued if this is passed. One primary issue of concern is that the definition of the parent tract as proposed, combined with the fact that each parent tract cannot be re-subdivided with a boundary line adjustment plat between properties owned by different owners, is very problematic. This requirement leads to a situation whereby some properties that are fortunate enough to have road frontage necessary to create 3 lots and a residue become far more valuable than those that have less than enough or no road frontage at all that would allow that parcel to obtain 3 lots and a residue. However, both parcels are taxed at the same rate before any subdivision of the fortunate parcel occurs, but when both are sold, the parcels that can be subdivided will sell at a much higher value. Therefore, it seems unfair to not allow the adjoiner with little or no road frontage to work with an adjoiner that has excess road frontage to increase its value of his or her property by purchasing road frontage from their neighbor who has more than enough. This same concern is expressed for those parcels that have no road frontage at all that existed prior to March 1st, 1970, whereby under the definition of parent tract, it cannot obtain any cuts because the text amendment would prohibit the owner of that parcel with no road frontage from working with his or her adjoining neighbor to re-subdivide in a manner that would allow the owner with excess road frontage to convey some of his or her property to the owner that has none. The only course at that point for the owner of the parcel with no road frontage to subdivide his or her property would be through a family transfer plat, which brings into consideration the potential for numerous parcels being created, all of which could potentially be served outside of the subdivided parcel by no more than a 10-foot wide easement. This situation creates issues for emergency response departments such as the police, fire, and EMS services, and could be avoided or diminished greatly by continuing to allow the no road frontage parcel to work with the adjoining property owner that does have road frontage, resulting in a net gain of 3 lots and residue for each rather than multiple family transfer parcels served by an underdeveloped path leading to them from a public road. Further, I think that who have interest in the text amendment change have been so focused in the agricultural zone properties detrimentally affected by what we have observed. We have overlooked the fact that the text amendment would also, as written, affect other properties located in different zones, such as RR and RE, residential rural and residential estate. In fact, the text amendment would even prohibit, as written, those lots in the core of downtown Suffolk that are comprised of multiple 25 to 30-foot wide lots to not be able to be re-subdivided to eliminate the interior lots to make a lot that you can build a house on under the current zone.
Sir, your time has expired.
Okay,
I'm
I was
sorry,
closing
but
anyway.
You're a little over.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Your next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name's Kelly Hingler, and I live at 9345 Eclipse Drive in Suffolk, Virginia, and I'm still processing what he said. So I'm going to add to this that I know the work that has gone on with this. It has been before planning, as you probably know. Maybe it would help the general public to understand how long this has been discussed. But I also understand what Mr. Wine said when it intended in speaking directly to the need for that chain of title to be presented to staff. Clear, distinctive documents in their hands because they are not title experts. 100% support that. That is our staff. That is, we do not pay them that job to do title searches. And then that creates confusion. I'll just say we know about that in Eclipse. All right, and leave that on the table. Which in turn creates a bit of grind in the community. Several such things have happened over a number of years, well over a decade, as a matter of fact, because of the age of some of our communities, yes? And how things were surveyed. I mean, we're the Virginia colony, let's be honest, right? And as time changed up to 1970 and beyond. So I would say if there was anything to give added opportunity for council to weigh in on comments that have been made tonight and take another consideration. I myself, as a person, would not be opposed to that. I would just simply state that one piece that gives relief to staff in my mind and gives clarity to the one thing that we prize above everything else is property. In Virginia, we really do, and chain of title, and that provides relief to staff, is my understanding. So I just would leave that piece 100% in support of staff and allow for further discussion if that is the pleasure of the council. Thank you.
Okay, can we have our next speaker, please? Do we have anyone else who would like to speak to this ordinance?
Good evening, gentlemen. Happy holidays. My name is Thomas Moore, and I reside at 133 Robin Lane, Suffolk, Virginia. And I wasn't going to get up here and talk tonight, except I had a phone call for somebody that I sold a piece of property to tonight, and wished me a Merry Christmas. And it dawned on me, this guy, he bought 8 acres from me on Labrador Lane. And he built a house on it, and he wanted to tell me how much he was enjoying his new house. And on this 8 acres, he had more than 6 acres of open land with it. So therefore, that property qualified for land use tax. So he took 1 acre out of 6 acres, one acre out of 8 acres, and the rest of it, that farmer is still farming that land. So not every tract that's created by minor subdivision is taken out of land use. I'm not sure about Mr. Bosselman earlier when he had those charts up there, that those charts were accurate. I don't know if the FSA office uses that whole tract is taken out and it's not farmed anymore. Every time I've done a minor subdivision, the first thing I look at is how to keep this as a farm active piece of property. And I try to add at least 6 acres of open land to it, so you can take 1 acre out for a home site and let that farmer continue to farm that land. There's also other things you can do. You can go back to that old open space agreement, and that will open up for, if the whole idea is to keep property in farm use, then you can look at the open space agreement that used to be in effect before the UDO. So that's my take on it. Plus, you've got Mr. Simpson back here, who's a builder, lives and works in Suffolk, employs people that work on his houses, that pay taxes in Suffolk, and so you're going to be taking jobs away from people that work, live, and play in the city of Suffolk. Thank you.
We have our next speaker, please. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak to this ordinance? Hearing none, this public hearing is now closed. An ordinance has been presented for council's consideration. Questions, comments, or a motion? Councilman Fawcett.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to ask, there seems to be some concern about some of the language, and there seems to be some items that are not totally vetted. I would ask that I would like to make a motion to move this ordinance over 90 days until such time as we have a chance that with the UDO coming up online, that maybe we can vet this a little bit better and render a better decision than trying to do this tonight. There's been a lot of concern and talk about this, but I would ask this council to go ahead and I'll make the motion to go ahead and move this ordinance over for 90 days until we get a chance to hear it through the UDO.
Before we look for a second, can we clarify that motion to set it for a date? Our city council meetings don't fall exactly 30 days or 90 days because of different days in the months.
Yeah, well, I don't have a calendar that goes that far, so.
3 months is March the 15th, if you're looking at 3 months.
If I could interject something, speaking to the city manager, you may want to entertain, if you are going to make a motion to table, maybe table it for 120, which would give us enough time to schedule a retreat, which will probably be in February, and that gives us time to discuss it there. And
Okay, I'll change the motion to be in 120 days then.
120, so we'll come up with a date. I'll have my calendar. Everybody's working on it, except for me. April 19th. That's a different one, April 19th. Okay, so that date would be April 19th, if you'll
Okay.
put that in your motion.
Yes. So we'll move this to 120 days, April 19th, to hold it over.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to table this matter until April 19th. Councilman Goldberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I understand where Councilman Fawcett's going. My initial thought was just to deny, but since Mr. Fawcett has brought up 120 days, I will second the motion.
Okay, we've got a motion to table for until April 19th, a second by Councilman Goldberg. Further discussion, Councilman Johnson.
Kevin, please. I want to clarify something, though. Number one, for the lady that asked the size of the lot and the size of the cuts, that's truly irrelevant, right? I mean, as far as, it's a minimum of what, an acre for the cut?
That's in the agricultural zoning district,
Right.
but the lot dimension standards, they're tied to the underlying zone.
Well, and the other, the size of the original lot, or the one we're coming off of, could be anything. Could be 40 acres, could be 10 acres, could be whatever.
Absolutely. The minimum
Just
lot size in the
make
ag
sure
district is 1 acre.
You understand that, but my other concern is, this, I will agree with this, but the point being made here is, our original UDO states that it is as it is, guys. This is not going to change the way we are still following the rules right now, correct?
That's
I
correct.
mean, this does not change anything. All this is doing is clarifying what we do. I don't disagree that we need to have this discussion because it's been too much concern and too much going forward. So I will agree with 120 days. But just understand that this doesn't change anything as it exists right now. Our rules are still in place. 3 cuts and a residue, and you can't take it off a back lot. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that was true. All right. Thank you.
Councilman Goldberg.
Thank you. I also would like to have you explain, the lady came up and asked about the March 1st, 1970 date. Could you explain that, please, for everyone?
So we've done a lot of research on that date, and I think it first appeared in the adoption of our UDO in 1999. We couldn't find any specific thing that it was tied to. We can speculate what it's tied to, but a lot of times when you're dealing in land use planning, particularly subdivision, there is a date of applicability that comes on the line. It's drawing the line in the sand. There's before and after that. So what is the origin of it? No one necessarily knows, but it is in the UDO.
Did it have anything to do with the merger of the county and the city and any of that kind of stuff?
74.
None of that? Did
No,
that was 74?
That was 74.
Okay, thank you.
Council, any other questions or comments? I'll just comment on this. I was predisposed to approving this with the knowledge that the intent was to clarify what has transpired, over the years, because it's rather ambiguous and it needs to be written. Whatever we decide on needs to be clear so everyone knows what to expect. Our staff knows what to do, property owners know what to do. When we look at what's in question, now we just listened to a presentation from the Ag Committee. On one hand, we want to preserve the agricultural nature, character, and heritage of the city of Suffolk, but on the other hand, you have property owners that deserve to be able to do within reason what they want with their own property. So with those two things, it appears to me, because just like Councilman Johnson asked a question, does it make any difference what size it is? And it doesn't. It's like one size fits all. I mean, it's 5 acres or it's 500 acres. The rules are the same. So what I am envisioning, or personally what I would like to see, would be to clarify exactly what's on the books, and if that's what it kind of stays with, the frontage requirements, the cuts, there still needs, in my opinion, to have an avenue to request a variance similar to a conditional use permit. Because each one of these is going to be different. They're all going to be different lot sizes. They're all going to be different frontages. Some of them have larger rear parcels than front parcels. So in my way of thinking, if we had a means to address something outside of what specifically is required, similar to a conditional use permit. It would still have to satisfy, it couldn't be willy-nilly, we can do whatever, but within certain guidelines, we establish some type of guidelines. So someone who has a unique tract that doesn't have any frontage, they can't get to 100 acres in the back because there's no means to create that access, maybe it's something we can look at. We could create an ordinance that could be related to lot size. So we can kind of do both. We want to be able to protect the agricultural nature of our city, and at the same time, we need to be cognizant of people's property rights and what they plan on doing. I mean, if I farmed a piece of property for 50 years, or I bought a piece of property, even based on what we have allowed under a different interpretation, and the whole purpose of this is to clarify that, so it's not subjective, but unfortunately, it has been kind of subjective. And certain things have happened, so everyone needs to know what the expectations are. So I have no problem tabling this for 120 days and hopefully come up with the right solution. I mean, in my world, I try to keep everybody happy. So, you know, we can do what we intend on doing as far as agriculture is concerned, and then we can also be aware of people's property rights and give them more latitude to do what they want to do with their property. So with that, we had a first and second. Councilman Ward, do you have a comment?
Well, who make these rules, the laws? Do the city, or do we make it, or the state make it? Excuse me?
Yeah, we adopt.
Okay, what I'm saying is, with what's going on, and I think I talked with a councilman somewhat, I think we got to look over some of these laws and rules we're doing, because some of this seem as though that they are new to us. And we got to get a better, and I agree with you, we got to get a better understanding of where our city has been, where our city is going. I think this is one thing that we have to, because it's too many people coming up, and those who coming up, it affect them more, and they are the people who know more about some of these situations than some of us on council. So I think that we should look over some of these laws and rules and see how we can interpret it better, and also make sure that the people, the city of Suffolk, is, you know, getting a fair share. Because some of this stuff, I'm listening, and both sides sound good, but, you know, where we go from there. And I have to agree on some of the things you have said. In the 120 days, I hope we take advantage of it and try to figure out what's best for the city. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other comments or questions? If not, we have a motion on the floor from Councilman Fawcett to table this matter until April 19th, and a second by Councilman Goldberg. Council members, prepare to vote. Please cast your vote. Madam Clerk, please record the vote.
Motion is approved by a vote of 8-0.
Our next public hearing is an ordinance to amend Chapter 31 of the Unified Development Ordinance of the Code of the City of Suffolk, Article 7, Supplemental Use Regulations, to add Section 31-725, Flex Space, and amend Appendix A, Definitions of the Code of the City of Suffolk. This is OTA 2022-5. Mr. Manager, please provide an overview.
Yes, members of council, Kevin Wine will provide the briefing on this item also. Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Manager, Mayor. Vice Mayor, this is another ordinance text amendment. We oftentimes look at the ordinance and try to identify ways that we can refine it, improve it, hopefully. And this relates to flex space, a very specific use. We identified some shortcomings as it related to flex space. We identified, the zoning districts that it's permitted within, and we felt the need to fill in some holes as it relates to flex space. I'll walk you through those. So flex space right now, the definition is very broad. And I'll walk you through what flex space is kind of designed to do. But it's broad and doesn't contain enough distinction between it and specifically warehouse uses. And that's a concern of ours due to the sheer scale of warehouse uses. Flex space is not only permitted in the M1 and M2 zoning districts, which are our industrial zoning districts, but also B2. O&I, which is our office institutional use district, and CP, which is Commerce Park, because traditionally flex space has some sort of office component or a showroom or some sort of retail operation. It's not just a warehousing use. So it's appropriate within those districts as well, which made it even more important to elaborate on what flex space is in the city of Suffolk. So from a market perspective, flex space is being developed to look and feel like larger warehouse structures. And that's certainly a concern for ours. So currently, and lastly here, light manufacturing. So say your small craft uses like furniture makers or some sort of small scale manufacturer would not be permitted within flex space, and we think that's a shortcoming of the existing definition because there's a need for that in our community, and flex space, I'm not sure what better opportunity to introduce some of that to the city of Suffolk. So our current definition reads as follows, and we have in red the areas we've identified as potentially problematic. It's a building designed to accommodate a combination of office, wholesale, and warehousing functions, the exact proportions of which being subject to the user needs, flexible. Flex space buildings are typically located in business and industrial parks and usually have a footprint exceeding 10,000 square feet. They are usually designed with loading docks to the rear and parking in the front, and the front facade is often treated with a higher quality architectural finish than the rear and side. So you'll notice in that definition there's a lot of flexibility, if you will, but it doesn't tell us much. There's nothing really binding there, and sometimes there's too much flexibility. So here are some examples. Obviously, we have the Ace Warehouse. We have the Amazon Robotics Center there in Northgate. There's no doubt that these are warehouses. However, if right now with that definition, nothing is limiting the size of a flex space if they were to have some sort of office component to them from qualifying as a flex space use. There's no square footage requirement. There's no height requirement. Those are some of the shortcomings we identified. Now, we do have some flex buildings in Suffolk, and we believe this is probably your better example. Here you have, I believe this is in the Suffolk Industrial Park just south of the city off of Carolina Road, but generally you have a prominent entrance, more pedestrian-oriented entrance, more inviting to customers. Usually there's some sort of retail or wholesale component to it, sometimes a showroom, but certainly a combination of users. Traditionally, in this next image you'll see here, this is Northgate Commons Business Park right off of Nansmet Parkway. It looks a little office-y in the front. Lower ceilings, usually the back will offer some sort of warehousing component, but it's a variety of users. Looks kind of like strip space, but larger, certainly more flexible. Here we have another example in Greenbrier. Once again, much more office-y relative to those warehousing photos I showed you. So looks a little bit more accommodating than your traditional warehouses, which you usually see internally to industrial parks. So what are the proposed changes we're talking about here? The first, we would revise the flex space definition to better differentiate from warehouse structures. That was our principal concern as we looked at this. We would add a definition for light manufacturing, which is excluded currently, which we believe is appropriate. Within reason, and then we would add Section 31725 to Article 7 of the Unified Development Ordinance in an effort to establish architectural standards and criteria pertaining to flex space that otherwise would not exist, and this is specific as it relates to its proximity and adjacency to residential structures, or residential zoning districts. So here's our modified definition. A building designed to accommodate a combination of office, we've added retail, wholesale, warehousing, and light manufacturing functions, the exact proportions of which of each use being subject to the user needs over time. Flex buildings are typically located in business or industrial parks and usually exceed 10,000 square feet in area. However, in no case shall a single building exceed 100,000 square feet in area or exceed a ceiling height of 28 feet from finished floor. We've added a definition for light manufacturing. Light industrial uses where all processing, fabricating, assembly, or disassembly of items take place wholly inside an enclosed building and where evidence of operational functions such as noise, dust, or odor are not detectable outside of an enclosed building. We've vetted that with some folks who've worked in those environments, and we believe we landed on a light manufacturing definition that we can live with. Lastly, and I'm not going to go over all of these would be the supplemental use standards as it relates to flex space when it is immediately adjacent to residential zoning districts. The reason we had to make this distinction, or we felt the need to, is the majority of the time we'll probably see these in the M1, M2 zoning district, but and sometimes they're immediately adjacent to residential, sometimes they're not. But your B2 zoning district is all over the city. Your O&I zoning district is all over the city. Oftentimes, if these aren't on SCOD roads, your special corridor overlay district, where we do have enhanced architectural and design standards, they'll be adjacent to residential. And when that is the case, we believe special care should be taken to make sure they're compatible with the existing neighborhood. So this talks about the massing of a building, its scale and intensity as it relates to commercial or office zoning districts. So they look more commercial and office in nature relative, instead of more industrial, like the warehousing images I showed you. They should be oriented to the street. The avoidance of blank or mirrored walls, so you don't have that just blank facade with no differentiation. The front facade shall appear to have a minimum of 15% transparency, so windows, they're important. Front and side facade shall feature articulation using recessions, once again, differentiating the facade to make it more interesting, to avoid blank walls, which can be unattractive. So truck parking and loading docks would be restricted to the rear of the building. We think that's really important. And then your primary materials for the front and side of the buildings would include, but are not limited to brick, masonry, veneer, stone, cement panel, and other material as approved by the planning director. So there's some additional considerations as it relates to this proposed ordinance text amendment, but it would further defining flex space and its allowed uses. The city of Suffolk will be able to further expand its commercial real estate offerings, which can, in turn, welcome more opportunities for small business and more diverse industries to establish and operate in Suffolk. We think that's really important. And lastly, the planning staff did consult closely, one with the Committee on Ordinances, but also the Department of Economic Development, as well as developers specifically of flex products in crafting this ordinance, and they were supportive. So that's also really important as you contemplate this tonight. The Planning Commission at their meeting on November 15th voted 7-0 to approve a resolution recommending approval of this ordinance text amendment, and I'll close there and be available at the conclusion of the public hearing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wine. Before we open the public hearing, Madam Clerk, will you please explain the timing system?
This is a public hearing, and each speaker is asked to provide their name and address, and will have 3 minutes to offer their remarks.
This is a public hearing. Will the first speaker please come forward and provide their name and address? Do we have anyone present who would like to speak to this ordinance?
Christopher Dove, A52 Colonel Lee Drive, Suffolk, Virginia. I think Kevin is spot on this. I do not particularly want to be a port-centric city. I want diversity in our economic structure. And by making flexible facilities that promote more than just one type of business, I think we will do that. I've been in Ferguson supply sections that have showrooms as well as warehouses in the back. I've been into lighting structures, the same deal. I've been into rug stores that have the same structure. They promote business, they promote commerce. I strongly support this.
Thank you. Have our next speaker, please.
Thank you, Council. Once again, I'm sorry I left my glasses, so I'm not going to be looking up much. My name is Kelly Hingler, 9345 Eclipse Drive, Suffolk, Virginia. So I would like, please, a further discussion and more details on what is flex space, because we had distribution centers, yes, very successful. So glad to have those distribution centers here in Suffolk, and we've blossomed into maximizing what looks like our M2 areas, yes? And I just heard the word residential. I didn't hear anything else. My brain stopped. We, in 2006, took over every bit of every responsibility that VDOT had, which is a bit of a shock because we didn't have our stormwater system still at the level of service that VDOT was providing because we took over every structure that they had, including the ditchways. So we have communities who are waiting for a major focus on housing and community development. We have 12 of them. And if we are now going to bring in something where I hear more opportunity because we all know that commercial building is not hot, I mean, it's like here, right? We have open, empty commercial spaces that's been talked about tonight. But if flex space is just another word for put a very large building next to a residential area, the majority of those residential areas are going to be in areas that are already heavily impacted by stormwater that we can't address because we don't even have VDOT level stormwater here. I'm talking about all the ditchways to drain water off of people's properties. We are not going to get there anytime soon to increase that. We have the number of houses and homes and cars that we have. And now to make a further cauldron while we're trying very hard, I've watched all your hard work, to address truck restricted roads and separate out what we need to do to support our Amazon, it's too much. I'm really needing some more information, if you don't mind so, and some more questions by council about what does this mean, okay? Because if this is next step, planting more next to residential areas who don't have parks, who don't have stormwater, we're not up to level of service of VDOT 2006 and our existing communities. I really say to you, we need to have further public discussion before any vote on this issue, and I appreciate you very much and all your efforts.
We have our next speaker, please. Do we have anyone else present who would like to speak to this ordinance? Hearing no additional speakers, this public hearing is now closed. An ordinance has been presented for council's consideration. Councilman Fawcett.
Could I get Kevin to come up, please? Can you kind of elaborate a little bit on the last speaker talking about putting a major component next to a residential? That's not the intent here.
No, not at all. And it's a great question. Right now, and our purpose is to protect residential neighborhoods in the setting. There are a lot of B2, a lot of CP, a lot of O&I that are immediately adjacent to residential use districts. And right now, there is no limitation on the building size for flex space. We're aiming to correct that by limiting them to 100,000 square feet. Right now, nothing would keep them from building much larger, and we don't think that's appropriate from a land use compatibility standpoint.
Thank you. I just needed to have that cleared out because I think I heard you right, but I wanted to make sure that the audience heard it. Okay?
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you so much.
Councilman Goldberg. Gotcha. Okay, we got a motion for approval from Councilman Goldberg. Councilman Williams.
I'd like to second that motion.
Second from Councilman Williams. Is there any other discussion of the motion? We have a motion for approval. Councilman Goldberg, a second from Councilman Williams. I'm just going to briefly comment before we vote. I was actually excited when I saw this thing. I don't get excited about much, but I don't know how it generated or where it generated from, but this is exceptional as far as I'm concerned. What we're doing is really with the guidelines that we have, the square footage requirements, the height limitation, which the height limitation of 28 feet precludes it from being a warehouse in the normal sense of the word, because I believe most of those buildings need to be 32 feet in height. There's also guidelines and restrictions as to loading and that sort of thing. So I think this would be a very, very welcome product to attract new investment to be used by small businesses that have a retail presence or don't have a retail presence, but they need some storage space. And it already, and it it protects those areas that we're talking about so it doesn't turn into a warehouse. So once again, my hat's off to the planning department and everybody that was involved in this. I think it was much needed and much welcome. So with that, we have a motion on the floor for approval. Council members prepare to vote. Please cast your vote. Madam Clerk, please record the vote.
The motion's been approved by a vote of 8-0.
And our last public hearing is an ordinance to grant a conditional use permit to establish a drive-through use for property located at 1523 Holland Road, zoning map 33A, *AW, parcel B, account number 153672700. This is CUP 2022-18. Mr. Manager, please provide an overview.
Again, Kevin to give the staff report. Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Once again, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. This is a conditional use permit application to establish a drive-through use, specifically for a Taco Bell restaurant at the old Al Forno restaurant on Holland Road. The subject property is located within the Central Growth Area Suburban Use District. The reason and what necessitates the need for a CUP is the fact that this isn't Zone B2, it's Zone B1, which is our neighborhood commercial zoning district. It's also located within our special corridor overlay district. But within the B1 neighborhood commercial zoning district, in order to establish a drive-through use, a conditional use permit is required. To the north of the property is a variety of commercial uses. It's a commercial corridor. You have the Food Line Shopping Center, Arby's, Hardee's, BB&T. All of those are Zone B2, but this is Zone B1. To the south, you do have a established residential community in Bethlehem Court. That's zoned RLM. And to the east are a variety of commercial uses. A lot of fast food here. It is Hamburger Alley, after all. Wendy's, Rite Aid, McDonald's, Quality Inn and Suites, all zoned B2. And then west, you have a few vacant parcels. Those are zoned RLM and B2, as well as the Bethlehem Christian Church, zoned RLM. Here we have a rendering provided by the applicant. The applicant is proposing to redevelop the existing site in order to construct a 2,287 square foot restaurant with 2 drive-through use lanes. The subject parcel was rezoned in 1985 from R1 to B1 for commercial use, and in October of this year received an administrative variance to reduce the amount of required parking from 31 to 29 spaces, as well as a reduction in the front setback from 30 feet to from 30 feet in the SCOD, that's once again our special corridor overlay district, to 27.6 feet, approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals. The proposed drive-through use is permitted as a conditional use in the B1 district. So the proposed restaurant is anticipating 6 to 8 employees per shift and will operate between the hours of 7 a.m. and 3 a.m. daily. Based on the proposed square footage of the building, as noted, 31 parking spaces would be required. However, the zoning administrator did authorize an administrative variance, reducing that by 2 to 29 spaces. The site currently is served by Public Water and Sewer, and the Department of Public Utilities, Public Works, Engineering, and Traffic Engineering divisions have reviewed this request and have shared no objections. And as you're aware, a conditional use permit recognizes uses that, because of their unique characteristics or potential impacts on adjacent land uses, are not generally permitted in certain zoning districts as a matter of right, thus necessitating a conditional use permit. Staff has evaluated the proposed use against these criteria and has determined that it's compatible with the surrounding commercial uses and would operate harmoniously with the established uses in the area and neighborhood. So in conclusion, staff finds the proposed drive-through use does meet the criteria for conditional use permits as set forth in sections 31306 and 31406 of the Unified Development Ordinance, and accordingly, staff recommends approval of CUP 2022-018. With the conditions as noted in staff's report. The Planning Commission at their meeting on November 15th, 2022, did vote 7-0 to approve a resolution recommending approval of this request with the application stated in the attached ordinance. That concludes my presentation. I'll stand by for questions at the conclusion of the
Thank you again, Mr. Wine. Before we open the public hearing, Madam Clerk, please explain the timing system.
This is a public hearing, and each speaker is asked to provide their name and their address. We will have a 10-minute period for the proponents, a 15-minute period for those in opposition, and then an additional 5 minutes.
This is a public hearing. Will the first speaker please come forward and provide their name and address?
Good evening and happy holidays. I'm Sarah McGowan with the GPD Group. We're the architecture engineering firm for this project for Taco Bell. Just wanted to thank staff for all their help. We've gone through different versions of the site plan, working with them and also with our neighbors. And we actually minimized the size of the building based on what we first submitted and relocated our stormwater to accommodate the comments and the requests from the neighbor. And we're all happy, I think, with this final option. And if y'all have any questions, I'm here. So thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am. Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this ordinance? Do we have anyone present to speak in opposition?
Good evening, once again, Jacqueline Brooks, 1305 Manning Road. Question I have is, there's a Taco Bell near Obacy, which is within 10 minutes drive, depending upon traffic. There's also one on Main Street, and now you're going to put one in Hamburger Alley. What in the world? Is there enough support for this business, Taco Bell, to have 3 locations within 10 to 15 minutes of each other? That's my big question. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Do we have anyone else to speak in opposition? Hearing none, we do have a 5-minute rebuttal period if you'd like to take rebuttal time.
I also realized I didn't give you all my address, so I'll do that real quick to make sure I'm compliant. It's 520 South Main Street, Suite 2531, Akron, Ohio. For the Taco Bell different locations, each site is chosen by the Taco Bell Real Estate Committee based on different traffic patterns, traffic counts, and the needs. So they do a study of all the areas and where they are needed, or they would get business. So this Taco Bell would not take the business from the other 2 locations in the area. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak during the rebuttal period? Hearing none, public hearing is now closed. All right, we have an ordinance that's been presented for consideration and motion, questions or comments. Councilman Johnson.
Yes, ma'am. It will be very busy on 58. and I think they're doing a good thing out there. So I would like to move for approval.
Got a motion for approval, Councilman Johnson, Councilman Goldberg.
I'd like to second that, Mayor.
Second from Councilman Goldberg. Is there any discussion of the motion? Hearing none, council members, prepare to vote. Please cast your vote. Madam Clerk, please record the vote.
Motion is approved by a vote of 8-0.
Okay, we'll now move to ordinances. We have an ordinance to grant a conditional use permit to establish a mini warehouse on property located at 3075 Godwin Boulevard, zoning map 25, parcel 29M, account number 253269600. This is CUP 2022-19, and this item was continued from the November 6, 2022 City Council meeting. Mr. Manager, please provide an overview.
Yes, Kevin Wine's going to provide the background again on this item. Thank you, Kevin.
Mr. Manager, last time tonight for me, so, but Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, this is just a recap of the proposed use. As you recall, at the meeting last month, you considered a companion item and ultimately approved that companion item for the change in zoning on the site from O&I to B2. This is the CUP for the main warehouse, which was deferred. It's a 5-acre parcel inclusive of the Morocco Federal Trade Commission. Oh. Thought something sounded funny. My apologies. Is this better?
Sorry, mine went out
Okay.
too, Kevin.
You want me to recap?
Technical problem. Blame it on Andy.
I broke this, apparently. I'm sorry. We do have supplemental use standards for many warehouses in the city, particularly the interior ones. Basically, we have supplemental use standards in place that ensure that they're designed to look more office in nature, much more commercial relative to a bunch of garage doors. We have those in place. So staff's evaluated this request up against it, and we feel really confident that it's compatible with the existing land uses. You may recall that there was an issue that came up last month related to the gallery at Godwin to the south, and an access that is shown on their site plan, and an access that is shown a connection on the proposed site plan here, provided by the mini warehouse user and applicant. That ultimately is a site plan issue. They will have to get site plan approval, which is a administrative process through our planning department. But I am aware that the property owners are working towards establishing a legal ingress-egress easement between the sites as well as a maintenance agreement. Those will have to be in place before we are able to issue a site plan approval for this. So that's where that issue lies. Wanted to provide you with an update as it relates to that. But in closing, staff has reviewed this request against the UDO. We believe it is appropriate for the district. Once again, they've given us some elevations that show what this could potentially look like. Those are not part of our recommended conditions, but we do have those supplemental use standards, which will go a long way to ensuring its compatibility with the neighborhood. So in closing, staff is recommending approval of this, and the Planning Commission at their meeting of October 18th, 2022 voted 8-0 to approve a resolution recommending approval of CUP 2022. 2019 with the conditions noted in staff's report. I'll stand by for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wine. Before I ask for question, comments, or a motion, I know last time that we heard this matter, there was a great deal of discussion over easements and access and ingress and egress and what have you. The CUP process, I mean, our decision is based on strictly, do we think this is an appropriate business and appropriate activity in this particular location? And any of those easement access issues will be addressed at the site plan review. So I just wanted to clarify that rather than, I don't want to get in the weeds with that again. So that needs to be first and foremost. Councilman Fawcett.
Mayor, I'd like to move to approve this.
Got a motion for approval from Councilman Fawcett. Councilperson Butler Barlow.
I'd like to second, Mayor.
Got a second from Councilperson Butler Barlow. Do we have any other discussion of the motion? Hearing none, council members prepare to vote. Please vote. Madam Clerk, please record the vote.
The motion's been approved by a vote of 8-0.
Okay, we have no resolutions this evening. We have no staff reports. We do have several motions. We have a motion to schedule public hearings to be held on January 18th, 2023, to receive public comment on land lease agreements by and between the City of Suffolk, Virginia and Shenandoah Cable Television, LLC, for cable utility cabinet locations on city-owned property at the North Suffolk Library and G. Robert House Water Treatment Plant. Mr. Manager, please provide an overview of the item.
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. Regarding this item, you will need to do two different motions as we have two different parcels involved. Of course, as the mayor just said, one would be at out front of the G. Robert House Water Treatment Plant, the Bob White House Parkway, and the other would be at the North Suffolk Library. The one there at the library, I believe, is 40 by 40 feet, and the one at the G. Robert House is 20 by 20. But we'll have that scheduled for your, should you pass the two motions, we'll have that at your January 18th meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Manager. Per that discussion and explanation, motion is in order to schedule the public hearing to be held on January 18th, 2023 to receive public comment on a land lease agreement by and between the City of Suffolk, Virginia and Shenandoah Cable Television, LLC for cable utility cabinet locations on city-owned property. This one will be at the North Suffolk Library. What is the pleasure of council? Councilman Goldberg.
Move for approval, Mayor.
Vice Mayor Bennett.
Second.
Got a motion for approval from Councilman Goldberg and a second from Vice Mayor Bennett. Is there any discussion of the motion? Hearing none, council members prepare to vote. Please vote. Madam Clerk, please record the vote.
The motion is approved by a vote of 8-0.
Also, based on the explanation from the city manager, a motion to schedule public hearings to be held on January 18, 2023 to receive public comment on a land lease agreement by and between the City of Suffolk, Virginia and Shenandoah Cable Television, LLC for cable utility cabinet locations on city-owned property at the G. Robert House Water Treatment Plant. What is the pleasure of council? Councilman Johnson.
To approve.
We got a motion for approval from Councilman Johnson. Councilman Williams.
Second it.
We have a second from Councilman Williams. Is there any discussion of the motion? Hearing none, council members prepare to vote. Please cast your vote. Madam Clerk, please record the vote.
The motion is approved by a vote of 8-0.
We have a motion to schedule a city council work session for Wednesday, January 18th, 2023 at 4 p.m. unless canceled, and a motion would be in order. Councilman Williams.
Move to approve.
Vice Mayor Bennett.
Second.
Second from Vice Mayor Bennett. Is there any discussion of the motion? Hearing none, council members prepare to cast your votes. Please vote. Madam Clerk, please record the vote.
The motion is approved by a vote of 8-0.
Let's see, our next motion has been removed from the agenda. That was the January 25th school board meeting. And we will now move to non-agenda speakers. Madam Clerk, do we have any non-agenda speakers? And if so, please explain the guidelines.
Yes, we have non-agenda speakers this evening. Each person participating under the item of business entitled Non-agenda speakers shall limit their remarks to the services, policies, and affairs of city government and shall be permitted 5 minutes for the purpose of presenting his or her matter. Speakers appearing before City Council will not be permitted to participate in the following activities: to campaign for public office, engage in personal attacks, promote private business ventures, or use profanity. Speakers who violate these rules will be declared out of order by the presiding officer and will immediately yield the floor and be seated. Our first speaker is Thomas Rhine, 119 Suffolk Meadows Boulevard, representing self regarding warehouses.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, City Manager, staff. I won't take a lot of your time tonight. I'm here bearing gifts, holiday season, so I have two things I'd like to give you. One is, and I sent this to you electronically, but it's so important, I think, to your decision-making and especially the planning moving forward. The New Jersey State Planning Commission report on distribution of goods and warehouse movement. I found this totally invaluable, having lived in New Jersey, and one of the reasons I had moved from there was all the warehouses that had come into my area where I lived. But they finally got their act together. A lot of great information. I know you had shown it at your Monday Facebook Live that you had. I just ask everybody, if you have some time, please look this over. It talks from everything from community engagement to planning, zoning, regulations, the future of warehousing and distribution. It's a lot of great information. They've experienced, they've lived it. They've got a lot more of years behind them than we do, and I just ask you to look at that. The other is from the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, talks about the high cube warehouses, which are totally different than most of our warehouses that we have. So this is specifically related to the Amazon warehouse that's in the Northgate Commerce Park across from my house. Again, in terms of traffic and planning and regulations, it's a lot different than a lot of the other warehouses we have in this city. I just ask you to take some time to look at this and review it. And when you go on your retreat or you talk about planning and the 2045 comprehensive plan, I think a lot of this information should be considered to be included in it. So I'm just going to leave that to you. Lastly, I came here originally to talk about item number 14, the tractor trailer parking lot in Northgate. As I said previously at this meeting and at the Planning Commission meeting on the 15th, I don't necessarily oppose the warehouse, the tractor trailer parking lot, but there's a lot of issues I have with how it's been gone about here. It's changed applicants since it was presented before. I know they've asked for 30-day continuance, the McGowan Group. I'm sure they're a very reputable firm, but in my mind, it changes everything. The applicant that applied for the CUP and was approved by planning to begin with is not the applicant now. You can slice the words any way you want, but again, in the spirit of giving everyone, including yourselves, sufficient time to review everything, I'm going to show my hand. This is what I feel, doing my research, is what I asked the Planning Commission to give me additional time on November 15th to review all the documents, of which there was over 500 pages. And I got them the day before the meeting. So I don't want to do that to you. I don't want to do that to anybody else, okay? So I'm going to give you what I put together about this, how I feel, and what I'd like you to look at. I will be here at the 18th meeting to talk about it if anything else comes up. And I know it'll probably change from what it is now, but again, I think that we all need more time, and I don't want you to be sitting here on the 18th and I come up here 10 minutes before you're going to make a decision on this to listen to what I have to say. So I'm going to give this all to you. Everybody have a great holiday. Thank you so much for everything you do. I really appreciate it. Great. And be safe. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Chris Dove at 852 Colonel Meade Drive, representing self regarding cluster development.
Right off, I'm going to apologize for being a Grinch during the holidays. I apologize. Last night, I was livid. While I was at work, I received a message from a friend that the Planning Commission was hearing an amendment to change the text of Section 31-411. a search of the Virginia Public Notices website showed that there were no required public notices for the text amendment. This change directly relates to the correspondence that I've been having with you in the Planning Department for months now. Specifically, the unlawful disregard of setback regulations of the UDO. The city attempted to codify, or is attempting to codify, cluster development setbacks as a means to circumvent the dimensional regulations after the fact. The fact that Mr. Hutchins made false statements of fact or law during yesterday's proceedings is an indication of how far the city is willing to circumvent the law. He stated the definition of cluster subdivision is they are not subject to the lot size and lot dimensions required of the requirements of the UDO. This is not true. It merely states that a reduction in lot size or area has a corresponding reduction in dimensions. This is not an express exemption from the standard. It's merely a statement of math. He stated that this particular provision does, what this particular provision does is limit some of the discretion that there is a clear, so that there is a clear identifiable setbacks for cluster developments instead of staff deciding. And he goes on from there. The UDO is clear that dimensional standards apply to all uses unless otherwise expressly provided in the ordinance. Cluster developments are only expressly exempt from minimum lot size. There is no exemption for setbacks. So I point out that the UDO does make in multiple sections make reference to the lot size standard exemption. There are no other express provided exemption for cluster developments anywhere else in the UDO. Cluster developments are written in the state and local codes are actually a good idea. Allowing land area to be devoted to perennial common open space and the preservation of environmentally sensitive areas should be a good thing. The city's use of this to unlawfully circumvent the UDO is the issue. The UDO defines open space, includes the phrase, the computation of open space shall not include driveways, parking lots, or other surfaces designed or intended for motorized vehicle traffic or to buildings. You will see in the city's that the city includes both driveways and the surfaces designed for motorized vehicle traffic in its computation for open space. In this subdivision plat I sent to all of you. If you review the West Haven Lake subdivision plat, you'll notice that this is a disregard of a provision and it is unlawful. The design standards of cluster development requires buildings shall have a mass compatible with the scale and intensity of surrounding developments. If you go to developer's website, Ryan Homes, and compare the scale and intensity of their models to the existing homes in West Haven Lakes, the very same subdivision, you will also see how the percentage of does not match the existing scale and intensity. You will also notice the percentage of garage as a proportion or percentage of the total building frontage violates the UDO requirement of less than 50 feet or 50%. It's in excess of 50%. So my problem is not that we have cluster developments. My problem is that the city goes ahead and uses this and ignores the statutes so that the developers can build whatever they want, anywhere they want. That's my issue. Thank you.
Our final speaker is Brian Harris, 2455 Lake Cahoon Road, representing self regarding population growth.
Good evening, everyone. Goodness gracious, it has been an evening. This is my first time sitting through a working session and then into city council, and I got to tell you some deep respect for all of you sitting up here, because it is a long long ride. And I don't know how you guys do it. So I had a different topic I was going to talk on, but I'm going to save it for January. I'm just going to keep it light. I'm the last speaker, so we're going to go outside in good fashion. So for me, my wife, this civic engagement is new to us. This past year, it's brought us to this podium many times, and I just want to say thank you to all of you for your support, your mentorship and guidance, and just, the passing conversations that have really helped shape our frustration to help, contribute to meaningful dialogue to help move the city in the right direction. So thank you for all of your time. Specifically to Miss Erica, Miss Jennifer, you guys are awesome for the support that you've given us in helping us weave our way through policy and process to get ourselves up here. And to the two Kevins, thank you very much for all you guys have done for us. And really I'll keep it light at that. I hope all of you guys, one more thing. Mr. Goldberg, I do understand this is your last meeting. And for the moments that we've shared and conversation we've had, I wish you the best of luck. And look forward to seeing you around town, and we can share dog stories. Yes, sir. With that, I hope all of you guys have a great Christmas, and we'll see you guys early next year. That's it. Thanks.
That concludes the speakers, Mayor.
Okay, we'll now move to new business. Madam Clerk, are there any additions to tonight's agenda?
There are no additions to this evening's agenda.
Thank you. Members of council, do you have any issues that you'd like to bring forward that require the action of City Council? Councilman Goldberg?
What's that?
Didn't you have some new business? Motion, new business? Hearing?
I have new business. Which one is it? Oh, excuse me. I'm so
It's
sorry.
a long night.
It has been. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. I was way out by Yes, I move that City Council reconsider conditional rezoning request RZN 2022-004, that a public hearing on this matter be advertised to occur on January 18th, 2023, and that city staff make all applications materials relevant to RZN 2022-004 available for review by the public.
We have a motion from Councilman Goldberg. Councilman Williams?
I second that. Thank you very
Second
much.
from Councilman Williams. Is there any discussion of the motion? Hearing none, council members prepare to vote. Please cast your vote. Madam Clerk, please record the vote.
Motion is approved by a vote of 8-0.
We'll now move to announcements and comments. At this time, I'll ask if Interim Director of Media and Community Relations Department, Jennifer Moore, if she has any announcements.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of Council, City Manager. I'll start the announcements off with the graduation picture from the first ever Public Works Citizens Academy that took place on October 13th through November 17th. 21 citizens attended the 6-week program and learned about a wide array of city services and responsibilities that the Public Works Department provides for the city. It was an opportunity for citizens to learn firsthand and ask questions to senior members of the department. Public Works plans to host another academy in 2023. An exciting grand opening just in time for the holiday season. Banner's Hallmark opened its doors in the Harborview East Shopping Center on College Drive on December 9th. The new full-format store features an extensive selection of cards and gifts in a modern, inviting, and easy-to-shop environment. The previous Suffolk store was 3,600 square feet, and the new store is a much larger 6,000 square feet of space. This expansion will increase their staff from 12 to 17 staff members. The Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 41 hosted their annual Shop with a Cop event on December 10th. 8 Suffolk families were invited to participate, and kids were given $100 each to spend on holiday gifts for both themselves and their family members. Alan Iverson of the Fraternal Order of Police, alongside the Suffolk Police Department and the Suffolk Sheriff's Department, were participating in this event. The City of Suffolk Human Resources Department hosted its annual employee meeting on December 14th. This grand affair closed out the year with a top-notch catered lunch and celebration of all city employees. To-go lunches were also provided for those who weren't able to stay for the festivities. Carolers from the Kilby Shores Elementary Chorus arrived at City Hall on December 15th to ring in the holiday cheer. The 19 students, mostly fifth graders, performed 5 holiday-inspired hits and were given a proper send-off by Suffolk City Manager Al Moore with a holiday-inspired thank you gift. The Suffolk Police Department and Suffolk Fire and Rescue participated in their annual Edmark Santa Run on December 11th. Ushering Santa in with a ladder truck and police escort, 4 Suffolk families were able to experience the Christmas magic brought right to their home, bringing a welcome distraction to these families as they deal with having a child in hospice care. And as we approach the holidays later this week, please be reminded that the City of Suffolk offices will be closed Friday, December 23rd and Monday, December 26th. Normal operations will resume on Tuesday, December 27th at 8:30 a.m. As well, city offices will be closed for New Year's on Monday, January 2nd, and will reopen for business on Tuesday, January 3rd. Please be advised that there are no change to the trash and recycling collection schedule. However, Suffolk Transit will not run on Monday, December 26th or Monday, January 2nd. And to close out our 2022 holiday season, please enjoy this recap video that showcases our holiday festivities that happened in the month of December. And that concludes my announcements for this evening. So Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and have a great night.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Moore. Okay, we'll now move on to announcements from City Council. We're going to start with Councilperson Butler Barlow. Let me hold it, and you're not even going to have to ask me to pick them. There you go.
Good job.
Took all year to figure it out.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to start out by saying thank you to the members of the Ag Advisory Committee that came and gave a presentation to us tonight. I thought it was very thorough and very well said and very much appreciated I appreciate their sharing their thoughts and concerns with City Council, and look forward to having them do that on a more routine basis. And just thanks to all the ag community. I value your support. I'm honored to be a part of that community, and I'm honored in the fact that we're all part of the city of Suffolk, and we're an important part of it. And I thank everyone again for their participation. I would like to say thank you to Councilmember Goldberg for his service to the city. I've enjoyed a short time working with you, and know that you have retirement goals, and wish you all the best. And as I said to you earlier this evening, I hope there's some time of doing nothing, not just, on to the next thing. Hope you have some downtime. And again, thank you for your service, and appreciate working with you during this time. And the only other thing I'd like to say is happy holidays to everyone, whatever you celebrate. I hope everyone enjoys some downtime with family and friends, and take it easy and be safe, and everyone enjoy your holidays. And with that, I'll say goodnight.
Councilman Johnson?
And Councilman Goldberg, I'd like to start off by saying it's been a good 8 years, but we've really enjoyed. You've been a real asset to the city, and we will miss you. But best of luck. You'll be fine. You got lots going on. I too would like to first off, I'd like to thank all the speakers tonight that came forward. Thank you, Brian, for keeping it kind of short. That was nice tonight. We appreciate it. We so value you guys coming and helping us out here, and hope you all have a very Merry Christmas. David Bosman and the Ag Committee, same thing. I'm not going to reiterate what Councilman Barlow said. I think they're going to do good things as we go along. I'd like to bring up, Lori White is the new principal at Lakeland High School, and Lakeland High School had a Christmas festival. I attended Friday night, as well as our community. It was so impressive. So next year, put it on your calendar. The kids were there, the band was there, the choral was there, they were all singing, they had vendors there, and it was just really, really amazing. Plus, I got a response from her for National Night Out next year. Next year, I'm telling you now, Lakeland High School is going to have a big to-do. So it's a good thing. So I'm very excited for our school system. And I'm going to keep it real short. The Flag of Remembrance, I think it's a wonderful thing. I think we really hit on something tonight. I thank the ones who are bringing it forward, and I'm looking forward to that going forward. And with that, I'll simply say Merry Christmas to everyone. Have a wonderful holiday with your families. Stay safe. Stay off the roads for a day. It's all good. Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Councilman Fawcett.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, the employee luncheon that was put on for the holiday luncheon was a hit. I'm going to tell you, they did a great job, everybody that was involved in that. The actual meal was great, the entertainment, the camaraderie, and everything there. So I appreciate all the staff with media and HR that did all the work to help put that together for us, and it was a pleasant afternoon, really. If you get a chance, go out to the holiday lights out there at Sleepy Hollow Park. Just kind of roll through there if you out driving, in the next few days, and take in the lights. I want to thank all the students who came out and put all that nice fine work on all the glassware out in the downtown and around the downtown area. It was great work. Thanks to the speakers that came out tonight, whether you were with the Ag Committee or just had some other agenda to speak about. I appreciate you coming out and speaking. I'd like to say happy holidays to all the staff. I don't want to forget the staff here. Our staff does a great job, city manager's office on down to the lowest individual that works in the city. I hope you have a great and happy holiday. I'm going to take a couple of minutes and go in a different direction here. So y'all just going to have to sit put for a few more minutes. But this is Don Goldberg's last night. I've worked with Don Goldberg before he came on council, and I've worked with him for the past 8 years. He's been nothing to me but first class. He's been honest, a good individual to work with. He's been more than a council person. He's been a friend of my family. He also supported me during my tough time when I was going through cancer. You were there. You were there every day, and he hasn't missed a day. checking on me. Leroy is the same, mayor, vice mayor. So Don Goldberg has put a lot of time into his constituents, and he's got a little tougher area than maybe some of the other councilmen up here. The Suffolk borough's pretty challenging sometimes. So he probably gets a lot more phone calls than some of us get in the other boroughs. But, you know, I think back of Donnie's career, of where he's been through banking and economic development. You know, Chesapeake Greenbrier wouldn't be where it's at today if it hadn't been for Donnie sitting in Chesapeake. The man has a wealth of knowledge. He has a lot of untapped knowledge that we haven't even tapped into, because I'm with him a lot, just on a friendly basis, not always on a council basis. And I'm just amazed by the things that I can get from him, that he knows, places around the world that he's been and experienced, and the things and people he comes in contact with that he can remember. This guy can remember names. I mean, he pops names out like there's no tomorrow. And that's even hard for some of them. I can't do that. You know, I'm going brain dead, I guess. But really and truly, you've been a gentleman and a scholar here, Donnie. Nothing short of that. And I can't tell you more than anyone on this dais that the support you've given me in discussing with me, and you may not have agreed with some of the folks on this dais, but the one thing I can tell you, you're an honest man. No matter what anybody ever will talk or say about you anywhere, I will stand alongside of you anytime, anywhere. I appreciate, you know, your friendship here. I appreciate your being on this council, because you brought a lot to this council in the last 8 years. I can remember the first day. I can remember before you got up here, the first day you was sitting right about where Kevin Wine's sitting. So my memory's not totally gone, but anyway, I want to thank you, family, for giving you opportunity to serve with us for 8 years. They've been gracious to do that. I know you got a granddaughter up at UVA, and you got another one coming right up out of the weeds. And yeah, I know you want to spend some time with your grandkids, especially during her college time, which is the fun time. So I appreciate you wanting to do that. I will tell you that I'm not going to like the fact you're not here, but yeah, that's okay. We'll continue to move forward, and we'll continue our friendship every day as we have. And I just wish you the best of luck, health, and whatever you endeavor to do. But thank you again. Happy holidays to everybody. Be safe, and we'll see you back in January.
Councilman Williams?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to thank all the speakers that came out tonight. Also, I would like to say that I attended the luncheon as well. It's a great event. Just want to echo what Roger said. You know, it was a really well-attended, well-put-together event. And to Mr. Goldberg, thank you, sir. 2 years we've sat here beside each other, and we've gotten to know each other, and I'm gonna really miss you. Thank you. I sit back and I've watched you over the last couple of years, and you know, we'll nudge each other and we'll talk, and I just appreciate you so much. And I'd like to wish you the best in all your future endeavors, and just enjoy life. You enjoy life. Yes. I would also like to say to everyone, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and please, please be safe. Thank you.
We're going to skip over Councilman Goldberg just for a moment and go to Councilman Ward.
Yes, I'd like to also thank the speakers that was coming. And like I said, most of them were very interested, especially the agricultural, the farmers. I got a real good lesson, and I was paying so much attention. I had to make a meeting with them because I want to know much as I can about what have been going on and some of the history of the city of Suffolk, especially with the farmers, regardless of what they might think. I know they are very important for the city. The employees luncheon is, like a couple of councilmen said, they always be the best luncheon we have during this time. I mean, it seems like they have different cooks, you know, and you just can't eat one plate. You want to go back and eat another plate, but yeah, they always do a good job, and I appreciate that. I also attend the homegoing of Paul C. Gillis. Like I said before, he was a pioneer in this city, locally and state. He was very active in NAACP and tried to get the rights of people that were involved with the NAACP, and like the preacher said, everybody. Councilman Goldberg, this is not the first time on council. Me and you met years ago. I was a little raw then. We're part of Suffolk Tomorrow. And both of us was intrigued with each other because we had Dr. Barnett and a lot of things was going on, and I was new to it, but somehow, like the other councilman said, you would make sure that I was up on things. And we had a lot of conversations, and I think that a couple of times you had asked me to help somebody in the political arena, how much faith you had in me in that. You knew I knew a little bit about political. I enjoy what happened is I hadn't seen you like a while back, and the first time I seen you in a couple of years, I think, was in Chesapeake Conference Center, and that's after like a year or so I won. So we just didn't see each other then. But like they say, during the time when we was in Suffolk Tomorrow, that's one of our greater time because, like I said, we shared a lot of things, and you showed me much interest, how much you was interested in the city of Suffolk. So it even made me more interested. And right on council, I'm not surprised at how you respond on council because you were the same way during the time on Suffolk Tomorrow. A lot of information, get to the point, and knew what you was talking about. So you had to listen and had respect some of your ideas. On council, it wasn't the same what it was Suffolk Tomorrow, but I just want to tell you the last couple of months and that me and you have we started talking again in a way that we respect each other. And I said to you, don't forget, I'll give me a call. And you said back to me, just let me know if you need me. So I appreciate that. Really appreciate that. I remember you back in, we used to work on Military Highway, buses, trucks, and all that stuff. So we go way back. They might don't know that, but me and you know. And like you say, your daughters, she was always one of our favorite. We had that leadership class. So God bless you and your family. But like I said, I know that you can be Don Goldberg and everything will be all right with you. And God bless you for that. Okay? I'd like to say Merry Christmas to everybody. The reason for the season, we know what it's for, all the gifts and everything else, but we know what the real reason is and what it means. I got a concern a little bit about the traffic, and Councilman Foster was he was right because, and also Councilman Johnson, we talked about that, and he shared with me something. I'm gonna see that can we follow through with that because I don't know too much about that other way. Because just like you say, you go down 58 sometime, and you see what he's talking about. I mean, I know I go that way sometime, but it's real. It's going to be something. It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge. So people like guys like us and ladies to make a difference. We got to think out the box. We got to make sure we understand what they're saying and just don't get a deaf ear. We got to think. Me and Councilman Foster know, I don't know if you all come up that way on Bridge Road and see the traffic that we had. It's a line of traffic going into Harbor View, going into College Square. I mean, there's some traffic. Traffic that comes off the interstate. There's some traffic. So when they have an accident in Virginia Beach, we feel it where we at, traffic. So something like that, and I don't know, I might ask questions because I don't know and I'm not afraid to ask questions. What are we going to do about it? I mean, we got to figure out something. Just like I hear you say, well, are we going to stop them from building? It's going to be people coming. So I think, I don't know, do we think ahead of it? Well, people are coming. We can't stop that. But what do we do when we get that traffic? You know, what do we do? I mean, like you said, these people come here, they come here for answers, not being put off. They come for answers. And when we witness what they're coming for, we can't sit here and like, okay, they want to know what we're going to do. So I'm not putting it on nobody, but I think when things starting to come and we know where the city's going, I think we should prepare before. They talk about Amazon, you know, with the trucks going there and going into the community. That's something that we already know. But we knew that when Amazon was coming. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what do we do? I mean, I sit up here and say, okay, they come in here. Sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes you don't have an answer. You know, what are we going to do? This traffic's not going to stop. And like I said, I talked to Councilman Johnson, and he had an idea. And I'm not going to put him on the spot now, but I want to talk to him about it. And no project too big for us not to talk about. And that's how things happen. To the point is, we got to see, can we get it done? Because we can't go back. They don't give us, no, let's see, can we get it? So you know about it, and I'm going to deal with that with you. Even if we don't succeed, we're going to try. Because there should be some answers for that. 58 going to be something. They can widen it all they want. Traffic's still gonna be there. So like I said Merry Christmas to everybody. And thank you all for this opportunity we have. And God bless you.
Vice Mayor Bennett.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to just start out by saying the Hallmark store for the ribbon cutting is a great store. And I really was shocked when I went in there, the size of it and all the stuff that was there. It's really, you can go in there and spend a whole lot of money. I'm glad my wife wasn't with me because there's a lot of stuff that the women was packing up, big bags of it, taking out. So I just got a little bit just to let her know I was there. But if you get a chance, go up there and spend some money. It's in Suffolk. So it's a good tax base for us, and they doubled the size of the building that they was in, and actually increased the employment by 5 by moving to the larger building. So I think that was a great success story for a small business stand in Suffolk. So I just want to say congratulations to them. And the holiday luncheon, I tell you, went over the top, Mr. Manager. I think everybody participated. All the employees looked like they thoroughly enjoyed themselves, and I got a chance to talk to quite a few of them and had a few pictures taken and whatnot, so it was a great turnout, and I think everyone really enjoyed it. And as far as the speakers, we always are happy to see people come and express their concerns, and that's why we know what you're thinking. So don't feel like you're not being heard. You might not get what you're asking for, but at least you're being heard and letting your voice be heard. So please don't stop coming to say whatever you have to say you have on your mind. I also like to say to a lot of churches participated in the food giveaway during Thanksgiving and coming up Christmas. And I can't thank the churches and all the other organizations that stepped up, because there are so many people that are really suffering this time of year with food and not being able to take care of their families. And I just want to say that I really do appreciate all the efforts that's being put up to try and help people that's in need. And that's what we need to look at Christmas time. We have been blessed. Let's try to bless someone else. I think the Lord has been good to all of us, and he asks us to share what he's given to us. And that's, I think, what we should do at this Christmas time. So please enjoy your Christmas, be safe, and if you're traveling, you see the traffic, AAA is saying how many people are going to be on the road, please be careful. And they're saying about big crowds getting together again. They're saying that that's not too healthy. So be careful. I hope everybody's had the shots, even though people are still coming down with the virus, even though they had the shots. But still, let's try to be safe. And now, my friend, Mr. Don Goldberg. Donnie, you and I go back many years. And I knew you a little bit when you was in the trucking business, and then you went to Chesapeake, and then you went on SIPS board with me down there. When you got ready to run for council, you and I got together. We ran together. And that was 8 years ago. And you have always been a friend of mine. We've always been there. We will still be there. I'm going to tell you like the rest of them. I don't care what nobody else say. They might not like it, but you haven't done anything to Leroy Bennett to make me not like you. So I'm telling you to your face, you're a friend of mine and always will be. And I do appreciate the relationship that you and I have had, and it will continue. So I want you to be able to go out after you're semi-retired and enjoy some of the things that you say you want to do. But I know your wife will keep you very busy. So she already told me that. She got things for you to do, honey-do. So please be safe, be careful, and we'll stay in touch. And again, congratulations to you. It's been great working with you on this council. We had a great working relationship, and we might not agree, but we still was friends. And I can never forget you for that. And thank you again for your service. And with that, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and be safe.
Councilman Goldberg.
First of all, I want to thank everyone who has said some mighty nice things, and I appreciate it very much. All have been very kind, and it's been my pleasure to work with each and every one of you. It is with mixed emotions that I speak tonight. It was my decision to not run for a third term. I had many reasons, pro and con, for that, but I made the final decision, and I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. Many people asked me why, and it came down to about three things. One, my age, my family, and my health. They're the three things that really influenced me the most in doing this. I would like to express some more thoughts, certain thoughts, before I leave office. And I wrote them down because I didn't want to miss some things. And I hate to take the time, but I want to take as much time as I need to get some things across. I've enjoyed serving my borough and the constituents of the city. I've tried to do my best in being fair, inclusive, in an atmosphere of being cooperative. It has been a real honor, and I thank all the people that supported me. Mr. Manager, I'd like to thank you and your entire staff and departments. You have been great to work with, and I consider your staff and departments to be professional in their fields of work. Over the 8 years of my service, I have enjoyed working through issues with your departments. I have been fortunate over many years in working with many city governments, and I find Suffolk in having one of the best. Not that we have always agreed, but the relationship was always handled in the best interest of our citizens. I thank staff in working with me, and I'm proud of the accomplishments together. Ms. City Clerk, thank you for your professionalism and friendship. You have been a help. You have helped us stay in line, even when I didn't want to be in line. And I sincerely appreciate your advice, even though it sounded a little bit like my wife talking to me too at times. Your years of experience is of great value to Suffolk, and I want everyone to appreciate those years that you have. You have been just superb. Mr. City Manager and staff, your staff, thank you for your guidance and keeping us within the boundaries of the rules. I won't say the laws, but the rules at least. Your experience is extremely important to a growing city, and I really appreciate y'all's advice and your time that you gave me. Mr. Assessor, you have been a shining star in your office with your staff. It is a very difficult job, and you have handled it magnificently. It has been a real pleasure in getting to know you and becoming your friend. Now I want to address members of the City Council. There are a lot of things that I can say. At times, it has been a struggle, and other times, it has been rewarding. I certainly wish all of you well with much success. I do wish to leave a few thoughts. Some you might not agree with, and others, some you might agree with, and some you might not. But here we go. First, our AAA bond rating is not a joke. Very few communities obtain that rating, and I warn you, you can lose it quicker than you were able to obtain it. If you try to stop the growth of this community, you will do great harm. The ability to increase revenue is based on growth. If you stop growing, you will fall back and you will not like what happens after that. Just look at some other cities around and see what happens, what has happened. The success of our community is wrapped up in its growth potential. People have asked all of us, why can't we have this business or that company or that store? Why can't we get that here? They will not come unless this community offers potential for them to be successful, and that comes with new homes, businesses, and more employment opportunities. Second, the system of getting things approved through the city process is presently quite slow and challenging. Trying to slow it down more is a grave mistake, in my opinion. You will find that new businesses will not come and people looking for homes will go elsewhere. And maybe that's what some want. Only through improving the approval process will you meet the needs for this city to obtain more needed revenue without raising taxes. Third, one of the biggest complaints that I hear during my 8 years of service to the city is the water bill. You have heard it, and I do not need to elaborate on it. Everyone has heard this and talked about it, except that only through business growth, home ownership growth, industrial and warehouse growth will you be able to bring these costs in line. If you do not believe me, then wait to see what happens when you have to have a large increase in the water utility tax. Fourth, we have a diverse community in many respects, urban, suburban, farms, etc. It's wonderful. We also have a diverse community in our makeup of our people. if it is your obligation to speak out when members of this city or community are slandered and discriminated against. Just because your ox is not being gored at that moment, one day you might find yourself in that position. You must speak out on racism, anti-Semitism, and all hatred from this dais. You must speak out on gun violence and the use of guns in our city. Not popular topics, but it must be faced. Recently, on the Port 460 project, that discussions became out of control, with hatred, false statements, anti-Semitism, and not a soul on the council, other than myself, who was being attacked, spoke out and talked about the nastiness that went on. Property rights. Property rights must be protected. Your home is your castle as long as you are following the law. You have a right to sell as you please. Neighbors, neighborhoods, and others cannot dictate how you should sell your property or to whomever, as long as it is within the law. Property rights are what this country was built on. Just a few facts. Industrial properties in Suffolk, 207 parcels with a total assessed value of $925 million. It provides for over $10 million in real estate tax. Agricultural properties in Suffolk, 1,895 parcels with an assessed value of $525 million. It would provide for over $6 million in real estate taxes, but for land use, we give exceptions, and that I agree with. We need to help the farmer. With land use, our tax collection, these 1,895 parcels generate $1,800,000. By the way, just so you know, $12.9 billion from the assessment on homes. That's the assessment on the homes, $12.9 billion. Oh, maybe that's the whole city. I'm sorry, that's the whole city. $9.5 billion is on the residential. That's 74% of the city's revenue. Please note that this council has provided a great deal to the farming community. And never say, and I've heard this, never say that this council does not care about the farming community. We spend a lot of time talking about it, and we do support it. Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your leadership and for your effort in researching issues and trying to find answers for our citizens. Being mayor is a full-time job, and I appreciate you doing the research you've done and what you've tried to do, and that. I honestly want to thank you for that. Mr. Fawcett, you made some very kind remarks to me. From the day I was elected, you have been a real friend. You came to the house. You wanted to work together, and I said we would. We have had many conversations about issues facing this city. We haven't always agreed, but we have found a way to work together for the betterment of our city. And I thank you for that. And that friendship will always be there. And I was concerned about your health. I still am. And I want you to be well. You serve a vital position, I think, on this council with your experience and your years. And I think it's very vital. And I appreciate you continuing to make your efforts. But we want you to stay well. With that, Mayor, again, I wish all of you the very best, and I hope you have an enjoyable holiday season. You have a big year coming up in 2023. If I can ever be of help or service, please call upon me. Just have to catch me. And I thank you all, and I wish you all the best.
Okay, I'll go ahead and wrap up 2022, I guess is what we're doing, at least from the city council side. I mean, that doesn't mean we're off between now and the end of the year. I don't think we get a vacation. We'll be around. Just talk a little bit. Everybody's mentioned whatever, so I'm just going to briefly touch on it, or nobody mentioned the Christmas parade. I mean, we had some jam-up weather. I mean, it was probably one of the greatest nights for a parade we could have had. And, of course, a little bit with the COVID people not getting out. I mean, there was a ton of people. It was just a great time. Jennifer, you did a great job on the announcement. We had Brett Hall there from Channel 10. They did a good job. We had, I mean, it was just a very, very enjoyable night. The holiday luncheon that got mentioned a couple of times, great job on that. I mean, you had some other things there as far as a morale booster. I mean, everyone there was very appreciative, all of the employees, and it's a great morale booster. On the 17th, I went to the Albert Horton VA Cemetery to the annual wreath laying ceremony. The cemetery is about 200 yards from my house. And I guess it was in 2004, I found out they chose that site for a VA cemetery. And I said, my goodness, it's the middle of nowhere, but I guess they'll show up. And behold, they have. It's quite an experience watching the very first veteran be laid to rest now and look out there, and I believe there's about 4,000. And to stand there and look upon that expanse of land, I know it's not Arlington, but if you haven't witnessed it and see all the headstones just lined up perfectly, and the professionalism that they have at that cemetery, and that is a state-run VA cemetery. They have federal cemeteries like up in Arlington, but we have 3 in the state of Virginia. I don't know how they could be any better than what we have right there. But it's just amazing, and you just kind of stand there in awe and look out and realize that every one of those individuals there chose to serve and defend their countries. Even if they were drafted, they chose to serve, because I was around during the draft, and some people chose to head north or head south or head someplace else. And they didn't choose to serve. So to see those headstones out there, and every one of those individuals chose to serve and defend our country and help preserve our freedoms and our way of life is just, I don't know, inspirational if nothing else. Our Lieutenant Governor was there. Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears, she was a keynote speaker. We also had Congressperson-elect Kiggins was there, and there was a very, very emotional, moving, inspirational speech by Jay Redmond, who is a retired Navy SEAL, Lieutenant Navy SEAL, who was wounded in Afghanistan, and I believe he was shot about 8 times. And, you know, what he had to say is just, you know, it's about choice and responsibility. And that's one thing that he says we tend to lack. The choices you make and responsibilities that you're willing to accept. So very appropriate regardless of what you're doing or where you are or what your status is in our as a citizen right now. Okay. I got a letter from Mr. Ray Laura, Lora, lives on Patrick Drive, and Driver, I believe, in near Sleepy Hole, and he uses the park there. And he wrote a letter of appreciation and wanted me to recognize DeJuan Jacobs. I assume he works in Parks and Rec. Of course, I'll skip to the last paragraph. He said he would like me to recognize Mr. Jacobs' contributions to the city by presenting him with a surprise cash bonus and a promotion. So I don't think it's a little over my pay grade, so I'll have to pass that on to the right. But it said the purpose of this letter, and I won't read all of it, is to express my sincere appreciation to the Park and Recreation Department, especially DeJuan, I say it's DeJuan, D-A-J-U-A-N, Jacobs. He's a dedicated, caring, and professional employee, and went on to just go through a description of how he goes about his job. He's dedicated, polite, and the extra effort he does in his duties, which is to keep the trail clean and safe that they use regularly. So I can't come up with the cash bonus, and I can't come up with a promotion, but he certainly deserves some recognition. And I'm going to recognize another individual, and he doesn't work for the city, he actually works for the school system. So you say to myself, well, I don't want to recognize somebody who works for the school system. Well, he was in the dealership today, and we were talking, and this gentleman's name is Rutherford Whitfield. Anybody know Rutherford Whitfield? He was born in 1938. You know what he's doing today? Driving a school bus. He's been doing it for 68 years. He started driving a school bus in 1954. I mean, think about that for a second. I said, dude, are you really still working? Yeah, I'm working. Yeah, I'm driving. He's got 2 jobs. 1954, he started driving a school bus. And one of my employees and one of my best friends is A.J. Parker, who's about 70 now. And he was doing his paperwork. Hey, Mr. Whitfield, you drove me when I was in the 2nd grade. I rode the bus. He's 70 years old. So, I mean, I just got to do a shout out. I mean, that's just amazing. I guess if Tom Brady is the go-to football, he's got to be the go-to bus driver. So, anyhow, shout out to Mr. Whitfield. Got an announcement. Henry mentioned this a couple of, I don't know, this study was done, I guess it came out in different places around the first of the month, but I was just made aware of it 3 or 4 days ago. And it was a study that was done, this says Redfin, but I think it's smartasset.com. But anyway, it has to do with the fastest growing cities in the United States. Fastest growing cities in the United States. This is not based strictly on population. This is not based on population. This is based on 3 things: GDP, population growth, growth in the number of businesses, and growth in housing units. There was only 1 city in the Commonwealth of Virginia, the whole state of Virginia, to be included in the top 100, and you're sitting in it right now. Suffolk, Virginia was the only city in the Commonwealth of Virginia to be in the top 100, and we were number 78 in the country. And they looked at 494 of the largest cities in the United States. And what's most impressive is we're just not talking about population growth. Our population growth, and this is what I thought was important to me, was 7.75%. But our growth in businesses was 9.55%. So our growth in businesses is exceeding growth in population, and that's a good thing. That means businesses are contributing to our city's coffers so our taxpayers do not have to. And that's just a tremendous trend. It's indicative of the leadership that's up here, our city personnel, our city manager, our citizens, what we've done in economic development. You just put it all together, this doesn't come out of the clear blue sky. I mean, this is more than impressive. I mean, if it was just based on population, say, okay, well, you know, we got more people. That ain't it. We got a little more of everything. So my hat's off to everyone who lives in Suffolk. I mean, it's just huge to me. I know it's a little redundant, but I want to thank Councilman Goldberg for his 8 years of service. We too have not agreed in everything, but you know what, the greatest boards, the greatest committees, the greatest everything always have diversity. Everybody brings something different to the table. And Donnie's economic background and his experience has brought something to the table. I mean, if we all know the same thing, we can't learn anything from each other. We all have to know a little something different. so we can bring things to the table. I'm especially going to miss his thoughtful and inspirational invocations. I asked him if he was keeping them in a book or something, because, I mean, they've been spot on. They've taken in current events. I mean, they're just, really going to miss them. And then when it comes to public service, I just wrote just a few things, and I won't keep you long, but it takes a sincere willingness to give one's time for the sake of community, and that's what everybody up here does. As an elected official, you could be spending your time with your families, you could be spending it at work. I mean, we could be home right now watching TV, drinking a soda or something else. And very few people actually choose to spend their time building a better, safer community for other people. And that's what you do, and you've done an excellent job, and I thank you for that. And with that, I've got to go to my quote. Before I go to my quote, I've got something here that I stole out of the sheriff's office last year from EC's office. I really didn't steal it. Katie Jones said I could have it. And I kind of used them last year, so I could take my glasses off because I can't see when it gets this. I put my official Christmas glasses on. So since I started this tradition last year, I guess I got to go ahead and keep it up. And I want to thank Katie and the Sheriff's Department for allowing me to keep these glasses. I don't see that much better with them, so you got to bear with me for a second. Let's see. We found my quote of the night that I've used before from Benjamin Franklin, but I love it to death. And that is, be at war with your vices, at peace with your neighbors, and let every new year find you a better man. So with that being said, may the spirit of the holidays be with you throughout the new year. Everybody stays safe, and I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn. Councilman Williams.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to adjourn from Councilman Williams. Can I get a second? Y'all want to spend the night? Okay, Councilman Goldberg, as it should be. Councilman Goldberg with the last second to go home with the last meeting of the year. Okay, if there's no discussion, council members prepare to vote. Please vote. Madam Clerk, please record the vote.
The motion is approved. The motion is approved by a vote of 8-0.
This meeting stands adjourned.